meeting to order. Well, annual reorganization at the beginning before closed session. And so I am grateful to be the new board president for this next year. Thank you to Rachel for all of her hard work this last year. We want to let the public know that we are video recording this meeting. The recording is being live streamed on our district's YouTube channel. So let's start with attendance. Anya, can you begin?
Hi, everyone. Anya Iapan, student trustee.
Good evening. Rachel Hurd, representing Area 5.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jesse Van Zee, and I represent Area 1.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out and joining us tonight. I'm Susanna Ordway, and I represent Area 4.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shelley Clark, and I represent Area 2.
And I'm Laura Bratt, and I represent Area 3. So now let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. We could all stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we love to start our meetings with student recognition. And this month, we are acknowledging the achievements of our high school athletic teams and student athletes from fall sports. We are so proud of the efforts of all students who participate in a sport. The teams and individuals being recognized tonight participated at the highest possible competitive level in their respective sports. We are very grateful to their coaches and their parents, their coaches for mentoring these athletes to be the very best that they can be. The athletic directors at each high school have shared the names and accolades of their teams with us. At this time, I'm going to call up our students up by school and by sport. Each sport is represented by either an individual athlete or by the team captains. Some of the athletes being recognized tonight were not able to join us. However, we will still announce their names. Coaches, if you're here, could you please join us up front as well when we call your names? So we're going to start with California High School. So the California High School flag football team, it's a girls team. This is the first year that flag football has been recognized and is an official CIF sport. And the Cal High girls have really made an impact. They placed first in E-ball, which is East Bay Athletic League, and their players were named League MVP, Co-Defensive Player of the Year, and First Team All-League. Representing the team are Lauren Gregorina, Olivia Horton, Kylie Tabor, I apologize, Nadia Sherman, and Lexi Reinhardt. And then we have coaches Frank Gregorina and Brad Bretzing. So board, if you could come up and maybe we could get a picture. But yeah, we have lots of athletes. All right, testing. All right. Next from Cattle High is cross country. So this year, the cross country team placed second in NCS and 20th at state. Representing the team are Audrey Ackerman, Jenna Leitner, and Blake Lemon. And the coaches are Nick Shea and assistants Stephen and Carrie Chavez. All right, moving on to Doherty Valley, we have the Doherty Valley women's golf team. The golf team had a great season. They were the NCS Division I champions and also earned a first place finish at the CEF State Championships. Representing the team tonight is Michelle Ho and coach Jim Peretti. And next we have the Doherty Valley cross country team. The cross country team placed third in NCS and sent several players to compete at the state level. Representing the team are Leanna Lee, Alyssa Shaw, Arin Sagaraju, sorry if I said that wrong, and coaches Lauren Nicasso and Ralph Gowan. Moving on to Monte Vista. So we have Monte Vista's women's golf. The golf team placed second in NCS, and Emily Lowe went on to place ninth in CIF. Representing the team are Emily Lowe and her teammates Maya Chan, Lauren Kim, Rain Ripperger, and coach David Nix. And for Monte Vista, we have the volleyball team. The MV volleyball team reached the regional semifinals this year and took fourth place at state. Representing the team are Abby Kraus, India White, Abby Gratteau, and coach Sarah Dukes Johnson. Right, and we have more from Monte Vista. We have Monte Vista's girls tennis. The tennis team placed second in NCS this year and moved on to the CIF state tournament. Representing the team are Brooke Salamera, Kate Rostogavensky, and coaches Anik Aurora and Rich Favreau. No one's here, but we're still congratulating them. And then we have the Monte Vista girls cross country. The cross country team placed second at NCS this year and it went on to place 16th at CIF. Representing the team are Alexandra Powell, Peyton Dolan, and Allie Turns, and Coach Patrick Wales Dinan. Right, moving on to San Ramon Valley High School girls volleyball. So after a successful season, the SRV volleyball team reached the regional quarterfinals of CIF this year and placed 8th. Representing the team are Audrey Visconi, Nolani Seal, and Sophia Vella, and then Coach Brian Fujinaga. Thank you. All right, and we have the San Ramon Valley boys water polo team. Congratulations to the team for a great run and making it to the semifinal game of the CIF tournament. Representing the team are Nick Tovani, Grayson Conensberg, and Coach Tony Tovani. All right, and the last one, we have San Ramon Valley girls cross country. This year, the team earned the titles of E-ball champs as well as NCS champs and went on to place 10th at state. Representing the team are Haley Gunderson, Alexandra Smith, Avery Knapp, Isla Muston, Alyssa Salven, Margot Schultz, Grace Rosegen, and Coach Rick Nee. So that you guys can go kind of spread out, you guys can do that. Congratulations to all of our talented SRVUSD athletes. We are so proud of you and we thank your coaches. Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, we did have reorganization and I did want to take a moment for us to thank Rachel. Thank you for your leadership. For your leadership this last year and your dedication to the students and the entire educational community. You've been an amazing role model and very inspiring. You've been empathetic in a way that has really mentored me and showed me how to lead, and I really appreciate that. So we do have an appreciation gift for you. Flowers. Yes. Oh, and then there's a card. Oh. Organized. So now I'm going to report out the actions taken in closed session. So the board voted 5-0 to deny the student records challenge in case number 3-23-24. Regarding expulsion case 01-23-24, may I have a motion to approve the stipulated suspension expulsion agreement?
I move acceptance of the stipulated agreement.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Roll call vote. Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Van Zee.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
You're out of sequence for me. It's going to take me a minute. The motion passes 5-0.
And regarding expulsion case 02-23-24, may I have a motion to approve the stipulated suspended expulsion agreement?
I move the motion.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Ordway and seconded by Board Member Van Zee. Roll call vote. Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Van Zee.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Great, thank you. So this evening, the board also voted 5-0 to appoint Evan Powell as Director 1 Classified Human Resources. And the board voted 5-0 to approve a settlement agreement in OAH case number 202-3100280 in the amount of $90,000 for educational services and attorney's fees. So now we're going to move on to acceptance of minutes. May I have a motion to accept the minutes from November 14th?
So moved.
Seconded.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Van Zee. Roll call vote. Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Van Zee.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
All right, and now moving on to agenda approval and consent agenda. May I have a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Seconded.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Van Zee. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Van Zee.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
So now on to the consent agenda. So consent items are considered routine in nature and are approved by combining them into a single vote. Only a member of the board may request that a consent item be removed from the consent agenda to be considered and voted on separately. The public may comment on a consent item before the board approves the consent agenda. And didn't look like we had any.
We do not.
So we do not have any public comments. So may I get a motion? First I should ask, does anyone on the board have any requests to pull any consent items? Okay, could I get a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Van Zee and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Van Zee.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, great. I want to start off before we start with the informational items the reports, just to do a little bit of housekeeping to kind of explain the process behind public comment. So if you would like to make a comment during the meeting, you can find yellow speaker cards on the table by the door back there, and there's also lots of instructions. If you do have any questions, please speak to a staff member. You will have an opportunity to make comment on agendized items when we come to that item. For comments on items not on the agenda, please wait until we come to non-agendized public comments on our agenda. Each speaker has a time limit of 3 minutes with a timer shown on the screen while you are speaking. This time limit will be enforced to ensure fairness. Please be aware that we may interrupt you and redirect you to the correct time to speak if your comment relates to a different agendized item or if it is not within our jurisdiction. The president does reserve the right to announce a last call for speaker card submissions. And the views expressed during public comment are those of the individual speaker. The absence of a response from the board or district staff does not imply agreement. The district believes in an inclusive, welcoming, and safe environment for its meetings for all of our community. Please be mindful that students may be in the room or watching virtually. We are all here to support them. Thank you for joining us tonight as we work to educate and support all the students in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. We greatly appreciate all of your engagement. So now we will start with reports to the board. 11.1 school highlight, Rancho Romero Elementary. So that's Principal Rupali Bali.
Good evening, trustees. Dr. Malloy. Is that better? Thank you. Good evening, trustees. Dr. Malloy. It is truly an honor to be here to talk about some of the wonderful teaching and learning that is taking place at Rancho. Before I start my presentation this evening, I would like to acknowledge my staff and my teachers who are here in the audience. Their support means a lot to me. So thank you, teachers and staff. As we continue our commitment to providing exceptional education at SRVUSD, and specifically as I talk about Rancho this evening, I want to highlight some of our ongoing efforts to embrace a holistic approach to education. The Rancho community places a strong value on nurturing the whole child, which aligns really well with our strategic directions as we aim for not only academic excellence for our students, but also ensuring that they are continuing to grow socially, emotionally, and personally. This work is certainly one that requires shared leadership. Many of the programs and initiatives that I will be sharing in my presentation this evening are led by my teachers, my staff, and students. I also want to acknowledge our three parent organizations, Rancho Romero Education Fund, Rancho PTA, and School Site Council, for all they do to support our students. But most of all, I want to say thank you to my parent volunteers who are always so generous with their time and expertise. It truly takes a village. As we look at one of the highlights for Rancho, I want to talk more about equity. At Rancho, we understand that equity means that every student gets what they need to be able to succeed and thrive at SRVUSD and at Rancho. As we look at our structures and processes, we have been very successful in the last 2 years to have a system in place under our multi-tiered system of interventions, where students who require additional support are provided with that timely intervention. At Rancho, every student counts and all means all. So I'm very proud to share that that also means students who are showing that they are ready for the next step and that they have mastered the skills and concept and they are ready to go deeper with that understanding of the concepts. We are able to provide them with enrichment and extension opportunities during our school day. With our deep learning, we want to be very mindful of making sure that our students continue to enjoy these opportunities. So we to pick and choose opportunities that help students to build joy of learning. And at the same time, we want them to be able to see the relevance of what they're learning to their own personal life. Whether we are talking about projects like Selling Day, where students become entrepreneurs, they create handmade materials, they give speeches, they collect feedback about their product from their peers, they create prototypes, or when we are talking about opportunities like our Green Team, which is also an excellent example of the partnership we share with the community.
This is our green team, which consists of students from grades 2 to grades 5. And they take a leadership role at our site whereby they educate others on the importance of reducing trash and increasing recycling and composting. So in that sense, our green team actually takes a leadership role doing peer mentoring for our students and also doing their own very special part about making sure that we are doing something for our environment. I also want to highlight another project here that our students engage in. This is called the Indigenous Garden Project, which is a collaboration between our 3rd and 4th grade classes. We started this last year and are continuing this year as well, where students research plants that are native to California, and then they took over a small piece of land on Rancho's campus that was underutilized and turned it into an indigenous garden and made it into an outdoor learning space that can be enjoyed by all students. I also want to talk about Harvest of the Month, which is a long tradition at Rancho. All students from TK all the way to 5th grade participate in this. But what we have done is we have taken this project, which focuses on healthy lifestyle and importance of good nutrition, and made it more cross-curricular, where students are using their math skills, their science skills as they are planting and harvesting crops in the school garden. I also want to highlight our efforts towards supporting diversity and inclusion at Rancho. We are committed to making sure that every student at Rancho feels safe, welcome, and included in all the activities at Rancho. We try to have various events during the year whereby students are able to talk about their own cultural experiences so that we can build pride in their culture and make them feel included. But the one that I want to talk more about today is our One School, One Book program, which is focused on building community school-wide. So it's like a whole school book club where we pick one book, which is strategically chosen with the character traits and values that we want our students to learn more about. And the whole school, all students from TK all the way to 5th grade, read this book. It is something that I do want to acknowledge Rancho PTA. They have been very kind to donate these books so that every family at Rancho gets a copy of the book. This is something that students do at home. They can read by themselves. They can read as a family. And teachers also record chapters that families can listen to at night. It really creates a rich discussion when students come to school and everyone has read the same book, and it truly helps to create readers, as well as build a community of students with the same goals in mind. I also want to talk about community giving, which is a rich tradition at Rancho. We know that acts of kindness not only help those who receive it, but also the giver. To that end, we encourage our students to become empathetic change makers. We want them to be able to help out wherever possible, and they have several community giving drives all through the year. Most recently, we had our Thanksgiving food drive as well as our warm coat drive. Students start even before the school year starts. They start with a backpack drive so that they can help out students who might need that kind of support. This year, we are creating even more opportunities for hands-on learning and community giving for our students by partnering with Pledge to Humanity. I also want to focus on our social emotional learning tonight with the goal of building connectedness, because we at Rancho understand the value of social emotional well-being for our students. We know that when students have a sense of belonging, when they feel connected, then they are more motivated, and that also helps them to do better in their academics. With that goal in mind, there are two things that I would like to talk about tonight. We want to talk about two things that happen actually outside of the school day, because there are many things that we do for our students to build their social emotional well-being. But these are examples of a culture of responsiveness The first one is our before and after school enrichment program. We had been hearing from our students and from our community that they wanted something like this available to our students so that they could pursue their interests outside of the traditional school day. And we are very happy to share that earlier this year, we started with our before and after school enrichment program, which was a huge success. We were able to offer over 20 sessions to our students, and over 450 students attended this first cycle of after school enrichment program, which is coming to an end this week. The second one that I want to talk about is our culture of responsiveness, keeping in mind our traffic situation. We started with early arrivals this year. So instead of the 15-minute drop-off window, we have a 30-minute drop-off window, which had another good effect that our students are excited to come in the morning. They're able to connect with their peers and their teachers. They have opportunities to interact with others, as well as participate in a morning recess before they start their traditional school day. I hope I have been able to highlight some of the work that we are doing at Rancho. And before I show this really short video, I do want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about some of our things that we're focusing at Rancho.
Thank you so much, Principal Bali. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a comment. I just want to say thank you for such a great presentation, how you tied together concrete examples of really awesome things you're doing at your school, but tied them back to the strategic directions. I particularly was interested in hearing about the green team and the indigenous garden. That's a unique thing. Haven't heard anybody do that before. The harvest garden, of course, and then your school-wide read, I think sounds like a fabulous idea, how it goes home too. So families are reading these books as well. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to also say, wow, I think you've hit on all the different areas on our strategic direction pyramid, right? Like everything. I'm really impressed on you are really doing the whole child, because your examples are giving them deep learning, like that research, like the indigenous garden. I know that there are many schools who do gardens, right? The school gardens and stuff. But I believe you're having students actually research, like, what are the indigenous plants that are grow. So a little bit of research there, as well as your selling day, also more research. So that's deep learning, but also with the social and emotional activities and yeah. So I'm just very impressed. Thank you.
You are really creating global citizens with these programs. We pride ourselves on our academic achievements, which are very important to us, but there's a lot more to educating the whole child than just grades and academics. And the programs that you have are preparing them for a life of giving to their community and learning how to work in teams and be collaborative in all of the efforts. And so I commend you for all of those programs. It's really outstanding.
Thank you.
I'll just say really quick, thank you for the presentation. And what also speaks volumes is how well Rancho is thought of in the community by the parents and the families and the students that attend there. And so that also speaks as well to all the things that you're doing there. And I really love the one school, one book program. That's a great idea. Thank you again.
Yeah, and I think to Jesse's point, it felt like with all the programs that you showed that you're really working towards building and supporting community, and in that comes pride, and that shines through. So thank you so much for sharing your community with us.
Thank you.
All right, so moving to 11.2 Resolution Inclusive Schools Week, which is January 23rd to the 27th. So our SELPA Executive Director, Linda Rowley-Tom, will present. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees. Good evening, community members, Superintendent Malloy, Assistant Superintendents. It's great to be here to talk about Inclusive Schools Week. This year will be our second annual Inclusive Schools Week. Last year, as a board, you adopted a resolution as an opportunity for us to come together to honor students with disabilities as full members of our school community. So the purpose of Inclusive Schools Week is to really celebrate the ways that students with disabilities participate in campus life and really highlight all of the inclusive practices happening at our school sites. Inclusive education means that all students with disabilities are full and accepted members of their school community. Inclusive Schools Week provides an opportunity to celebrate and learn about disabilities. Through Inclusive Schools Week, we emphasize the importance of inclusion of students with disabilities in all aspects of campus life, with the goal of fostering a culture of acceptance and empathy. This year, we have taken the lessons that were designed last year by our phenomenal inclusion specialist, Kara Teach, and broadened those for our educators. They'll be launched to all of them. The resources that are shared with teachers are optional for their use on campus. It's adding disability awareness into the curriculum for the week that we celebrate Inclusive Schools Week, the 22nd to 26th of January. Those optional resources include curated lesson plans, books, and videos, highlighting the unique contributions and strengths and talents of students with disabilities. Again, so that we have that understanding and empathy among all students. We're very excited to do this Inclusive Schools Week in partnership with our PTA Exceptional Education Committee, as well as our SELPA Community Advisory Committee. They've worked collaboratively with us to be able to celebrate and to offer additional supports to each of our schools. In fact, our PTA EEC and CAC have worked together to create bookmarks that we will be purchasing and distributing to every student in the district, along with every staff member. The bookmarks have been designed by Julie Blinston, one of our EEC CAC members, and they celebrate all students with our tagline, "Education takes on a beautiful shape when all students are included." Our adult transition students will work to collate and package all of the bookmarks for delivery to each of our school sites. And we're very excited that we're able to do that this year. So really, the purpose of Inclusive Schools Week and why we celebrate it is to not only highlight all of the inclusive things that are happening, but to bring awareness to students with disabilities and the variety of disabilities on our campuses. We strive to celebrate all students with disabilities and to model respect, empathy, and high expectations for every student with disabilities, not just during Inclusive Schools Week, but during every week of the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments?
My kids went to San Ramon Valley High School, and I saw firsthand in that community how powerful it is for this when the students are inspired to bring the students with disabilities into the fold. And they have a very particular culture there that's really beautiful, and it's reflected in what you said tonight. So witnessing that, it changes the way that you look at other students with disabilities and what can happen in a community. So thank you.
Thank you. That's certainly our goal.
I had a chance a few years ago to actually different exercises, right? To kind of step into the shoes of someone who has disability, different disabilities. And I can't tell you how eye-opening that is. So thank you. Thank you for, for offering the curriculum and the lessons and stuff that our teachers will be using, right, to I think make that understanding a little bit more accessible.
So, and I want to say thank you to you and your team for all of the work that you do to support inclusion for all of our students. I know that that you have that wonderful mandate of ensuring that every single one of our students is equal, regardless of whether they're in part of a special education program or not. They're all they're all general students first, general education students first. And I've seen in the 3 years that I've been on the board, I've seen the hard work that you and your team have done to really support that idea, and being a part of the CAC with SELPA and the parents involved, and hearing those stories and understanding the value of inclusion and allowing each and every student to feel like they're a student first. And that's the most important thing. So thank you so much. This week is extremely valuable for all of our students. Thank you.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you. And thank you to the community for all of the support. Thanks.
Right, so moving on to 11.3 kindergarten, grade 3 report card changes. So that will be our executive director of education. I believe primary education. I don't have it listed on my script, but Katie Witt.
Thank you. Good evening, President Bratt, fellow trustees, Superintendent Malloy, and members of cabinet. We are very excited to share with you the revisions being made to our kindergarten first, second, and third grade report cards. These revisions were needed in order to best reflect and report student progress with the implementation of our district-wide essential standards, our learner profile, and our instructional shift rooted in the science of reading. This has been truly an outstanding example of shared leadership across our elementary team, as it's been teacher-driven, supported by our site liaisons, and led by the amazing Sarah Costa-Landry, who will be sharing and highlighting these 3 shifts and the process we followed. And so take it away, Sarah.
Thank you, Katie. Good evening. It's an honor to be with you to talk about this exciting work that we've been able to accomplish in updating the report card. First, it's important to note that the changes we've made to the report card are rooted in our strategic directions. Specifically, under deep learning and innovation, we've experienced some meaningful shifts in our instructional practice. Katie alluded to those. I'm going to go into a little bit more in depth. The first is the selection and cultivation of our district-wide essential standards, led by our liaisons and our teacher leaders over the last 2.5 years, to establish a guaranteed and viable curriculum across every grade level at all our 22 elementary schools to ensure that every student has access to the same academic content, no matter which school or which teacher they may be going to school with every day. In addition to that, we are very proud of our shift towards the science of reading practices in reading instruction. This has led to the adoption of CKLA for grades kinder, first, and second grade, and a shift towards more explicit, systematic reading instruction that improves reading outcomes for all students in our early elementary grades. And we're seeing that move up to the upper grades as well. And it's very exciting to see these changes and how students are acquiring early literacy skills. In addition to that, over the last school year, we adopted our learner profile that was developed in collaboration with various community members. The learner profile represents the vision for what we want students to experience here in SRVUSD, and also in their future endeavors to be healthy, happy, and successful adults. So we think it's really important we're developing students' critical thinking skills, that they're creative contributors, they're adaptable learners, effective communicators, and intentional collaborators. All right, so those have been 3 impactful shifts. And we also know that reporting out progress of student learning to families and students themselves is critical to student progress. And so we've had up until now a disconnect between our reporting tool and these 3 shifts you're seeing now. And we heard loud and clear and felt as a team, we really needed to do the work necessary to update our report card reporting tool to reflect the shifts for teachers in their classrooms, because ultimately the goal is for our report card to reflect what we value and what we teach. All right, so what was our process? How did we do this work? As you can see, the first step was identifying the shifts in practice, which I've gone over. In addition, teacher voice has been at the forefront of all of this, because as teachers are embracing these new practices, they're wanting to communicate accurately to students and their families. And they let us know we need an updated way to report out progress to families. And so we listened to them, and then we engaged in the updating process over the course of, I think it's almost been 10 months of iteration after iteration, led by an amazing team of teacher leaders and our liaisons to have come up with final drafts, which we got feedback on. Every teacher in our elementary schools and the grades affected got to have input and ask questions and provide feedback to us. And then we ultimately, because of the hard work of the dedicated teachers involved, were able to publish a really detailed, supportive guidance for teachers to be supported in the shifts, to understand how to assess, what might be some good assessment practices and tools, and then also for families as well. So we're really excited about that guidance we're going to be providing to create more coherence across all our schools. So the big thing would be, what are the shifts, right? There are 4 things we want to highlight for you. The first is that our district-wide essential standards, all of them appear on the report card. So where we used to have standards clumped together on the report card, and teachers might have found it difficult to figure out, how do I put a mark for this group of standards and communicate clearly to this family or our caregivers about the student's progress? Now each standard has its own line item, which brings more accuracy to reporting. It's easier for teachers to do. They feel more comfortable in being able to report out on individual standards. And then it also brings clarity to families about better understanding where their kid is at in regard to a specific standard as opposed to a standard group together. In addition to that, we have our reading standards are all aligned to the 5 pillars of literacy under the science of reading. So phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Each one of those is the header under the reading section. And so a family can see exactly where their student is at in regards to the development of those 5 pillars. And then what we're really excited about as well is that our learner profile is now represented on the report card. So we have really worked hard to develop some learner skill statements. Those I'm going to show you right now. So demonstrates curiosity and tries to solve problems and or generate new solutions. Tries new things and seeks to improve. Demonstrates flexibility and empathy in various situations. And so these learner skills that teachers are going to be reporting out at are ultimately going to communicate to parents where students are at in the development of those 5 competencies under the learner profile. And then ultimately, we're super excited because of the detailed guidance that's being provided to teachers. We're going to get more consistent assessment practices and outcomes across all of our elementary schools, which we know is better for students and brings clarity. So then what would be our next steps? We know we need to engage in this process with 4th and 5th grade teachers to arrive at an updated report card for them for the next school year. We also want to continue to develop and deliver ways to support assessment of the learner profile competencies. That's something we'd like to expand over the next couple of years and beyond. And then we'd also like to expand the practice of more opportunities in assessment practices for time, choice, and feedback in elementary. And so that's really all I have. Thank you so much. I would be remiss not to acknowledge the amazing leadership around me and the team who led this, from our curriculum instruction team, our coordinators, our ed services team, the amazing teacher leaders and liaisons who all supported this work. Thank you.
And President Brad, if I could just add one quick comment. First of all, what just happened in a few minutes is an extensive amount of work. And so I'm grateful to all who have led it. And I also want to clarify, because we did receive some questions after the package went out, that all the discussions that have been happening regarding grading and assessment that we've talked about through workshops and other meetings has really been focused mostly on secondary. And if that wasn't clearly stated, I want to state that now, because what we're doing in elementary is basically strengthening and enhancing a way of looking at assessment and evaluation that has always been there, probably 2 decades, if I'm not mistaken. And so the shift you're seeing here is just to go deeper with what has already been. And all of the discussions we've been having in the last 6 months or so, specifically in boardrooms and workshops, has really been more focused on secondary, which we're still in the middle of a process. There is no policy on that as of yet. As we shared at a previous board meeting and at a workshop, that's all going to happen over the next year without implementation till after that. So I want our community to know that we're not mixing those two things up at all. This is a continuation, a strengthening. And what's exciting about it is, if we're going to adopt curriculum, for example, that the evidence suggests makes a difference, our assessment practices need to align to it. And I think that's what this is taking us to the next level around.
Thank you. Board, do you have any comments or questions?
So the K-3 is live now. So parents are going to be expecting that new format.
Correct.
Okay,
So
coming up.
the report cards go home January 19th. End of semester is next week. So our goal is to communicate to families before winter break, K through 3rd grade families, what these changes are so that they're ready and expecting it. Some teachers did opt to share this as a preview at parent conferences in October. So that will be going out district to those families from the district again before winter break. And then we will also be sending, because that's almost a month away by the time they actually get their report card. So we will send an additional reminder from the principal, and then we'll also be sure to attach a cover letter kind of explaining for any families that maybe had a previous kinder through 3rd grader, so that they're not surprised. And so we're just trying to really over communicate that. And of course, you know, teacher first, site admin are all there to answer and clarify any questions.
That's great. And then is there any communication going out to the 4th and 5th grade parents? So those parents like myself who have multiple kids of multiple ages, that those aren't not changing yet to expect a similar format?
That's a great question. So our goal is to support any families that have an older sibling in 4th and 5th. So that will be communicated in our communication. And then we will also ask our principals to do a general blurb in their newsletter, inclusive of the 4th and 5th grade. Not yet, but we're working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one. I know the essential standards have been adopted and all that, and I've asked a few times, where does one find them? Because I've searched the website many times and I can't find them. So are they now in a place where someone can either search for them or go to Ed Services and click on an obvious link?
Yes. So we, with all of our comms around report cards, this came to our attention that it's not so easily find or easy to navigate on the website. So we've created a button under our curriculum information. Additionally, we will be sure to link the essential standards in our communication. So it's an easy click for parents if they're unfamiliar with what district-wide essential standards are. We want to be sure that there's an understanding that we didn't create our own district standards. It's really still our state standards that we have identified as being essential to student progress and learning.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so moving on to 11.4, College and Career Readiness Plan. So that'll be our Executive Director of Curriculum, Debbie Pettish.
Good evening, President Bratt, fellow trustees, and distinguished members of Cabinet. I think all of you know me, Debbie Pettish, Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction. You may not know who's sitting next to me, and so I would love to introduce you to Daron Marcus. And he is a curriculum coordinator that we hired several months ago. We are so fortunate to have him on the curriculum and instruction team, especially because he has tremendous expertise in the area of college and career readiness. So I am going to start us off, and then I'm going to turn it over to him to talk about the details of our plan. I know this looks very, very familiar to probably everybody in this room, but of course our six strategic directions approved in June of 2021. And of course, here is this. We feel the pyramid really exemplifies the ways in which our 6 strategic directions overlap with one another. And our college and career readiness plan, we've started to actually call it really more of a framework for everything that we do, especially with regard to deep learning, innovation, of course, our academic excellence, but also really social emotional well-being. There are very important components there as well. So I know that Katie and Sarah went over our deep learning and innovation strategic direction, which again ties very, very closely to the work that we want to do with our college and career readiness plan. And then our learner profile. So we believe students thrive when they can think critically, are creative contributors, adaptable learners, effective communicators, and intentional collaborators. We also feel that students are ready for college and career when they are able to achieve these competencies. So they are really truly woven throughout the plan that Daron is going to describe.
Good evening. Thank you, Debbie. So it's our goal to ensure that by graduation, all of our students achieve proficiency in the competencies of the learner profile. And it's our goal because, as the byline under the words learner profile say, we want our students to thrive. And to better ensure that they do thrive and are able to maximize those competencies, we must help them attain college and career readiness. But the question that we ask is how, and the question we've been asking for the last 3 months of my employment here is how are we going to get there? So basically, how do we design and highlight the elements of our students' experiences in school to support them in becoming college and career ready? And how do we ensure that all of our students achieve those elements equitably? You might be asking yourself a different question. You might be asking yourself, why? Why should we focus on career readiness when we know that many of our students are highly performing and they go on to college and they go on to careers? And I would suggest that not all of our students have that pathway. And we would encourage them to do so, but not all of our students have that pathway. And second of all, to be career ready, it's not just academic proficiency, it's also being equipped with essential life skills. Problem solving, critical thinking, effective communication, all of those. And by focusing on career readiness, we're helping them navigate those diverse career pathways that they will have available to them once they graduate, and best prepare them for the complexities of the modern workforce. So really what we're suggesting here, what we're offering here is a holistic approach to education that supports not only their academic growth, but also their personal and professional development, and really making them into like well-rounded individuals that are truly future ready. So to better ensure both college and career readiness, we really must provide our students with opportunities to engage with all of the facets of college and career readiness. And I've been very lucky to work with such amazing people in the last 3 months that have worked with me to help develop this plan. And I've also used my perspective as a career technical education and college career readiness leader, where I was in my previous employment at the county level, and my connections at the state and my understanding of the system. Through many meetings and getting lots of feedback, we've been able to develop our TK through 12 college and career readiness plan. And this plan is built upon 9 different through lines. And each of these through lines really describes a group of skill sets that together define college and career readiness. And I'm going to go through them one by one, give a very brief description, and then a term or a word that best describes that. So what we must do is provide our students with opportunities to connect what they are learning in the classroom with their post-secondary trajectories. And we're just calling that academics. So that's all of the literacies: math, reading, writing, science, environmental, those literacies. We have to provide them with opportunities to develop their social emotional competencies and help them become really good decision makers, really help them become self-aware and help them kind of project themselves. So self-awareness. In a time of AI and VR and the rapidly evolving workforce that are harnessing those tools, digital literacy is not just about the technical skills that students will need to have one day, but it's really also about knowing how to use those, how to use technology ethically. So digital literacy is much more than just those types of skills. Having just a general career awareness while they're in the TK through 12 system, and knowing how they one day will be able to navigate those varied career pathways that they will come upon. So career literacy. Helping them develop the capacity to develop both flexible and actionable plans, both for the short term and the long term. So planning. The ability to foster a student's vision about their own future and help them envision themselves in a certain career, to see themselves in that career. In other words, fostering their foresight and then connecting them with those people who have those jobs or who went along those pathways. In other words, giving students insight into their own futures and to like what they can expect once they get there. And while doing that, instilling in them a strong sense of civic responsibility and empathy through service learning and being connected with their community through community service. And finally, providing students with enriching opportunities to develop both those industry connected skills and soft skills, those professional skills, how to interview, how to write a professional email, how to network, all of those things, by providing them with those enriching experiences while they're here in our district, in our school district. We've gotten lots of feedback about how these through lines align with our strategic directions, and everybody seems to believe that they do very strongly, both for the upper section there, which is about the deep learning and innovation and academic excellence. So those are the academics and the different literacies that I talked about, but also by providing all of our students with equitable access to those opportunities and ensuring that they achieve well-being while they're here. And those are the other through lines that you see there on the bottom. So this is a new slide that was designed to increase clarity and better provide a mental image of this plan. And we're using a metaphor of a mountain. We sit in the San Ramon Valley in the shadow of Mount Diablo, and we feel that this metaphor is appropriate for the journey that our students will take as they move through our TK through 12 system. We have different names for the different parts of the mountain, or in other words, the different experiences that are the different grade bands that students encounter as they move through the system. And also we have this 4E model that goes along with this, which you can see there in the little key on the bottom, that really describes students' engagement with college and career readiness. So at the very base of the mountain, we have base camp, which is the grades TK through 3, which is when we begin to expose students to college and career. As they move along on those trails, and I'll describe those trails in a second, they get to the foothills, which are grades 4 and 5, which is where they start to more deeply explore college and career. Moving on into middle school, which are the crests of the mountains, where they really start to have more of a direct experience with career and the kind of skills that go along with the variety of careers that they could experience in the future. And then ultimately, we're hoping that by the time students graduate, and they get to high school and then graduate, they've achieved some type of enlightenment, where they really do have an idea of what they want to do based on their own passions, their own interests, and their skills. So those trails that you see there, you can see those 9 through lines that I just described before. We've sectioned them off into 3 separate categories, and those are intertwining trails that students travel along as they move through our system. So I apologize for the small font. It's in your board packet if you wanted to follow along. So as Debbie said, our plan is really a framework by which we're really creating a context, or we're reimagining many of the things that are already happening that are very successful in our schools. And thinking about them in a new way under this umbrella, this college and career readiness framework, but it will also reveal if there are any gaps that might exist, and then what we can do to fill those gaps. So that's either curating resources or creating those resources that we need. So I'm going to highlight 3 of those trails, those rows, those through lines in a moment. But first I want to kind of take you through briefly what the experience of, say, a child in base camp or in TK through 3, where they're being exposed to college and career readiness. And we're just going to go down that second column where it says base camp there and go through each one of those through lines briefly. So for example, in academics, while teachers are teaching their core instruction, they could highlight the wide variety of careers that are out there. Kids love that. But, you know, kindergarten kids, first graders, they love talking about careers and thinking about adult life. So it's a perfect opportunity to integrate careers into that instruction. It's also a great opportunity to teach them about money or financial literacy, which is a huge part of career literacy. If we want our kids to be digitally literate, we need to start as young as possible and introduce them to the principles of computational thinking. We want our students to be self-reflective and provide them with activities and have discussions around being people, being themselves, and what that means. We want to have opportunities to transform classrooms and think about them and schools and think about them as career centers, like the principal of Rancho said about selling day. I mean, what a wonderful opportunity for students to think about themselves as entrepreneurs. Think about what does that look like in the adult world. But there's also other opportunities. And think about the roles that students play in the classroom. You know, in elementary schools where students play roles like sorting, like one student's responsible for sorting the waste. Well, we can reimagine that as waste management, or a student who's responsible for taking a student to the office if they're not feeling well or getting the first aid kit. Well, that's healthcare. Or students like who are responsible for peacemaking. My son was a peacemaker when he was in 3rd grade, right? That's diplomacy, right? So if we really rethink this, and according to this framework, where students can start associating the roles that they play and the things that they're learning with career readiness. And to move on there, helping our students have a growth mindset which over time will progress into this idea about being able to plan for the future, and engaging with their communities and having insight into like what's going on in our communities and visiting our community-based partners, and being able to build healthy routines through and being connected with their community through service learning. And like I said before, like kids love thinking about careers. So having them dress up as those careers, or having a vehicle day where ambulances come and fire trucks come, right? So where they could really engage with adults, not just for the sake of like, let's see what's going on out there, but really to help, again, envision themselves in a career, something that they're truly passionate about. And now I just want to briefly take you through a couple of the actual through lines, through a couple of those, few of those roles, so we can see how these experiences progress over time. They're not standalone experiences, they're experiences that progress. So for example, in the academics through line, or the trail in that mountain metaphor, again, highlighting careers during core instruction, but as they get older, we would have entire lessons around careers where we integrate those lessons into our scope and sequences. And as students move on into the middle school, having more experience, having entire electives designed for career awareness, like a STEM career awareness elective course. And as the students move into high school, increasing enrollment into our CTE courses, into college prep courses, and into community college courses, our dual enrolled courses. So hopefully you could see the progression there, starting from the youngest age. And thinking about digital literacy, starting with principles of computational thinking, integrating coding activities into instruction, integrating entire lessons, entire units as the students get older, and then ultimately when students are in high school, increasing enrollment in AP computer science courses, right? We don't want to leave computer science just to the high schools. We want to make sure that the students are doing it as early as possible. And then once they get to high school, they want more. And in terms of planning, starting off with teaching about and developing a growth mindset in our youngest students. I'll jump to the end. We know that our high school students develop these 4-year plans when they get to 9th grade, thinking about their high school careers. But wouldn't it be wonderful if they could practice that when they're younger? So students in 4th and 5th grade are thinking about their middle school careers and thinking about what are their strengths and what do they need to improve when they get to middle school? And once they get to middle school, actually continue to revisit that year after year, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and develop a portfolio which has artifact of their learning that shows their growth over time. And once they get to 8th grade, then plan for what's it going to be like in high school and what do I need to do to improve? And then once students are in 12th grade and moving on to their post-secondary journeys, they really do have some kind of an actionable plan that's flexible, and we know things change, but at least they have a plan when they graduate from our system. So this is a lot, and we can't just implement all of it at one shot. So we have a phased implementation plan here where we have 2 phases, first starting in January of next year and going through the next school year, where we'll have our counselors who have been consulted with throughout this process through the planning, who will be an integral part of supporting this phase 1, and who will work alongside administrators and college career readiness leaders and liaisons. And we will be doing things like, and we've already started in a way, of developing these interdisciplinary pathways in our secondary schools where teachers will work together to develop interdisciplinary units. And another pilot would be to develop, to assess the strengths of our students, of our elementary school students, to have them assess their own strengths. So using the platforms that we have to be able to do that. And speaking of platforms, thinking of new platforms that we can get for college career readiness, we have Naviance, but there's been a lot has come out since Naviance was first introduced. So we are exploring that. And then asking our students, what do they want? What kind of courses do our students want in middle school and high school? And then how can we redesign our course catalog to be more aligned to our learner profile, to our strategic directions, and to our industry pathways that we have available? And having students think about courses in that way. And then actually expanding CTE pathways once we know what they want, and once we kind of have an internal inventory of and our connection to our community and what does our community need, build new pathways. And that means building new partnerships with community colleges, with our industry-based partners, with our community-based partners, and then ultimately deciding how we can assess the learner profile competencies. How do we know that we're getting to where we want to get to? And then in phase 2, which much more involves our teachers, as who will be integral into that part, we'll get there when we get there. And that takes us to the end of the presentation. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Board, does anyone have any questions or comments? Anya?
Not a question, but so much of what you said just is so incredibly exciting, and I can't wait to tell more students about this and the work that's going on and the opportunities to look at interdisciplinary pathways. And I mean, like when I was in elementary school, and you're right, a lot of the work kind of exists, right? You have these different roles, and I remember my favorite day of 2nd grade, we were all selling items. We were like businessmen. We were like, I made a coloring book and I was selling that. So turn that off. But I think identifying those and really being exposed to I didn't know what the healthcare industry was when I was in elementary school. But I mean, you have the opportunities to showcase that. And I'm just so incredibly excited for this and to see this being implemented. and for students to be involved in looking at pathways. So I just wanted to say that. Super excited.
Thank you. That really means a lot.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you because you're focusing on college and career, and it's not even a sequence of the two. It's both and I think that that's, you know, we were all just at the CSBA conference. We got to hear a speaker speak about our current generation really needing to understand why and what am I doing and why am I doing it. And I think that we're probably doing a lot of these things, but we're crystallizing a plan to really make it um a universal culture within our school system to do that. And I think that that is something that the next generation needs to understand. Well, okay, well, why and what can I dream about doing as I'm doing these things? And you know, you see students ask the question, why will I ever need to know this? And I think it's going to connect, you know, it's that concept of the why that I think is going to be really powerful. So thank you.
I was thinking a lot about that same presentation that Jesse alluded to, and like, you know, when you hear two points of view about the same kind of thing and you're trying to resolve what's what, I think a lot of what you showed us is even beyond what that speaker talked about. But the one piece that I think we might want to entertain was he said, let's not talk about college and career. Let's just talk about career. College is just one of the ways in that path. And I almost wonder if that could kind of reframe, you know, some of the attitudes we have about like, once you get to college, okay, I'm done, right? Well, you still got to work on all that career stuff through college. So why not plant all these seeds and realize that your college education is part of that path? But I agree with Anya. This was really exciting to see how you laid it all out. Thank you.
Yeah, no, just also adding to excitement. I mean, we're taking it down to, right, our youngest, but we're not waiting to, you know, to implement this plan or whatever to our, you know, usually what happens is high school, right? Like ninth grade. Oh, now you think about this, right? We're actually doing this very organically, and for the kids to all our students to have time to kind of not even think about definitely why, but who they are. And there's a purpose in what they're, you know, the next step. And I think for those who are going, you know, wanting to go to college, the from my work, I know that colleges, and especially the most competitive and selective ones, are asking that question of our students. Who are you? And so I think that to give them time to really reflect, right, and develop that is yeah, it's priceless. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I've been waiting to hear about this for a while, and I know it's taken a lot of work and a lot of research, and bringing you on obviously was your huge asset. I can tell already from the way that you presented. I think that this is going to open up a whole nother world for our students, whether they're college bound or they're career bound. I like Rachel's point about career, because I don't come from, of everybody on this board, I don't come from a traditional educational background. I didn't go to a traditional university. I worked a lot, and I went back to school a couple times and got certificates and all these things. So my path got me here. And so everybody doesn't have the same pathway to get wherever they're going to be or to be successful. So having something like this as a roadmap, and from a young age, presenting this information and incorporating it into our curriculum is huge. And it's a huge step forward for our students, especially, as Deb well knows, personal finance and life skills are my mantra. And unfortunately, with our funding situation, we have to be more creative about how we incorporate those into our curriculum. Because if I had my way, life skills and personal finance would be required before you graduate from high school, because there's so many things and so many traps that our students can fall into when they don't have that information available to them, and they don't learn it before they get out there into the world. So I commend you for all the work, and I look forward to seeing how it's going to roll out in all of our classrooms, especially with our youngest learners. So thank you.
Yeah, and just to kind of put a period on all of these wonderful comments, I think, you know, the idea of being intentional throughout all grade levels around, I don't want to say the end goal because there's lots of end goals, but around developing our children to become adults, and that means having careers and being a big and productive part of society, and academics is a big component of that, and college for many is a huge part of that. But the end goal is really to be a productive adult in a career, right? And so having that, you know, that be the intention and the goal. And then I wanted to kind of just make a point of, you know, one of the things that my kids have talked to me about as they've gotten into like middle school, and 8th grade was always like a big like tipping point for them, where all of a sudden everyone's asking, what are you going to be? What are you going to do? What do you want to be? What's your job? You know, where are you going to go to school? You know, all of those things. And they would talk about how that really added pressure. And it's like, now all everyone wants to talk about is this. Whereas all the years before it was about learning and love of learning and those kinds of things. And so not having intense conversations in kindergarten and knowing that, but having, so that it becomes more about how we can think about ourselves rather than about defining ourselves, if that makes sense, right? Like really allowing our students to see the future without the pressure of having to make decisions at a specific time and point in their academic career. And knowing that it is about, you know, ideation and exploring and learning and all of those things. So that then when they do finally come to the point of, you know, putting that stake in the ground, this is what I want to be, they have all of these tools to really make an informed decision at that point. And it doesn't have to happen just out of the blue. What are you going to be? Where are you going to go? You know, those types of things. So thank you so much, Jerome and Debbie. We really appreciate all the work you've put into this. It's been.
I just want to add one thing. I have my son at home, and he graduated from college a year ago, and that was a great experience for him, and he matured a lot and all of that. And it was important in him getting his job. But as I see him in his job and the skills that he needs, they're all in that learner profile. He's working collaboratively. He's got to be creative. He has to be flexible. Those are the things that are keeping him employed, not his expertise at Excel, which, by the way, he has because he went to college and it's great. But those characteristics are the things that make him successful, his character, all the things that we're trying to teach kids other than just academics, which are important. But it's interesting to watch as you watch your own kids be successful in the world. And why is that? It's about who they are and the skills that they have. So this is really great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I did want to kind of make a point too. You guys are free to go. Just in all of these last informational reports, you know, I see this through line of really showing the development and beginnings of implementation of our strategic directions that we worked on 3 years ago. And it's, you know, seeing the fruit, you know, it kind of blossom and grow. And it's just, it's really exciting to watch all of the work that's happening, the district level, at the school site level, in the classroom, with the students and the families. It's just, I think we should all be proud of all of this great work. So thank you. We did have, so we're moving on to public comment. I apologize. There was a public comment for a consent item. So I'm going to ask the person who brought this card, and I apologize. I'm new. That's my excuse from my pocket. But so it is for the consent item 14.4, which is adoption of instructional materials, and OG Strogats. If you wouldn't mind coming up, yes, and speaking, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just a very brief comment apropos of the adoption of instructional materials that you have on your agenda for tonight. My name is Oji Strogatz, and I am co-president for the Danville Alamo Walnut Creek branch of the American Association of University Women. And on behalf of AAUW, I just want to express our strong support for the district's thoughtful process to evaluate curricular materials, our trust and our confidence in our educators' professional expertise, and our appreciation for their commitment to a curriculum that honors a richness of perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, OG. And thank you for your patience with me and not doing the timing right with this. So next we move on to public comment for non-agendized items. I do have a little bit of some comments to make about it. So this item is for non-agendized public comment, an opportunity for our community to speak on the record about items not on tonight's agenda. During the non-agenda public comment, the board cannot respond to comments because the topics have not been published on the agenda prior to the meeting. Please be aware that we may interrupt you. I've already told you that if you do not speak, if you can speak on an agendized item instead of non-agendized. And again, please be mindful that students may be in the room and watching virtually. So I am going to take a moment now as we begin to start this. Are there any other non-agendized public comment cards that people would like to submit? And if not, I'm going to close our stack. Okay, great. So let's see, the first, I'm going to put that later. So we have Teresa Butler Duran.
Good evening, dignitaries, staff, and community members. I'd like to give you a quick update on my progress with the upcoming Fulbright to Finland. Within this next week, students at Stone Valley will take part in a survey to provide feedback for actions they currently take towards helping limit climate change and the challenges they face in living a more sustainable lifestyle. This information will help me in my research with designing a lesson unit that will be tailored to the needs of the learners in our district. I am hopeful that it will give me some ideas for how to best connect our students with students in Finland. In the last 2 months, I've reached out to several local organizations to see if they could donate some small items to share with students in Finland during my visits. I'm happy to report that the San Francisco Giants, San Jose Sharks, the Yosemite Conservancy, the Golden Gate Recreation Area, and the Mount Diablo Interpretive Association have all donated stickers, badges, patches, buttons, and bookmarks. In addition, 2 students at Stone Valley, Ella Chu and Zara Thacker, designed a climate change image that has been made into stickers, which will be shared with students at Stone Valley and students in Finland. I've learned that there's a trend in Finland for students to wear buttons and patches on their jackets, so I hope that the goodies bring them some joy. Tomorrow, I will meet with my advisor in the United States to review planning and implementing my research project. The objective of the project is a curricular unit on climate change that links students in Finland with students in our district so that they can work on climate action projects together. I'm optimistic that this project will foster global competency for our students, as well as skill building opportunities for living a more sustainable life. Ultimately, the goal is for our students to think critically with people from different parts of the world. The ability to engage with multiple perspectives in the pursuit of knowledge will be the key to their success. On January 7th, I leave for Finland and will be there through June to complete this work. Thank you for granting me this leave, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Teresa. And safe travels if we don't see you before you leave. Next, we have Roberto Clemente.
Dear Dr. Malloy and esteemed members of the school board, I penned this letter with an immense weight on my heart, driven by overwhelming mix of anger and frustration over the enduring racial injustices that persist at Doherty Valley High School. The primary architects of these injustices are Evan Powell and Bob Spain, are further compounded by what seems to be a deliberate cover-up by the district office. There are unequivocally two sets of rules at Doherty Valley High School. One set for my white colleagues, another for the staff of color. This deeply unsettling reality casts a shadow over the well-being of both staff and students. There are two sets of rules at Doherty Valley High School under the purview of the principal and his administrators. My white female colleagues are granted the liberty to openly express their emotions in equity professional development sessions, resulting in the derailment of an entire program for 2 years. And in line, concerns raised by white administrators received prompt acknowledgement. Inadvertently sidelining urgent needs of staff of color seeking those professional development classes. Furthermore, there are two sets of rules at Doherty Valley High School under the purview of the principal and his administrators. White administrators are permitted to make cultural insults without facing repercussions. For instance, comparing a teacher to a customer service representatives was met with silence and dismissal, despite my impassioned explanation of how such comparisons insult the achievements of my family as they escape political imprisonment, coming here as refugees who worked hard to change their narrative. Yet again, there are two sets of rules at Doherty Valley High School. One for white teachers, one for teachers of color. Under Dr. Malloy's leadership, the San Ramon Unified School District continues to propagate this unequal treatment. Complaints from white administrators are met with swift responsiveness, while those from staffs of color are met protracted silence, reprimands, and acknowledgement only when threatened by public exposure.
Thank you.
I have copies of this for all of you, since I didn't really get to finish the whole set.
Thank you. Next, we have Jennifer Kavaunoris. Okay, I apologize. Next, I have Jennifer Cavanaris.
Well-being. Who is going to be accountable for this? Because there's something going on in our schools, and I'm a very concerned grandparent and parent here. I'm here to read from the book Triangles that's in two of our high schools right now in San Ramon. It's in San Ramon Valley High School and Cal High. Beneath my short denim skirt, he finds nothing but skin. Are there any kids in here? Thank you. Finds nothing but skin and hot, wet pulsing. His fingers start there, work their way inside. My body screams for orgasm, but not like that. Fuck me, I beg. He smiles, props me up on his knee, unzips his fine silk trousers, brings the swollen knob of his cock just outside my thrumming slit, stops, say please. Later in the same book. Open your legs. His face dives between them and his mouth claims what he finds there. And when he says, you can come now, I am ready. I am beyond ready. Now that you're wet, I'm going to do something I've always wanted to. He slips one finger inside me, 2, 3, at 4. The pressure becomes terrific. Later in the same book, he pulls off my blouse with a practiced hand, and before I can think about what might come next, he has lifted my breasts from the confines of my bra, Lovely, he says. Don't you think so? He asks Lorraine. In answer, her lips, cool and silk smooth, wrap around my nipple. Lorraine licks and pinches right, left, and Micah moves into director mode. Sit up on the table facing me, he says. Then to Lorraine, I want you in panties only. Micah eases a hand up under my skirt, slides the thong of my own panties to one side, and as his thumb begins a slow, slippery ride, Lorraine stands over him facing me, and now I kiss a girl for the second time. I bury my head between the plentiful rounds of her breasts. Her skin is warm and softly scented with ginger, and now, as if I've done this 100 times before, I move my mouth to taste her nipples. They are larger than mine, luscious. My partner's hands pull me back to lie across the table. He kisses Lorraine as Micah's tongue finds the sweet spot between my legs. It all becomes a heady mix of men, tongues, hands, fingers, the unique brine of woman, the heat of cock, condoms, don't forget those, and God, orgasm, mine, hers, theirs. I think other people are watching, touching themselves because this foursome is amazing. Beautiful people doing incredibly sensual things, segue to dirty, nasty things. And for a second, but only a second, I flash on Jace, at home with the kids. The disquieting thought makes me ask myself, what kind of wife and mother has group sex with strangers in public? So I'm here with a group of parents, and we're going to be exposing a lot in the next coming weeks. This is 16 books right now are on your shelves. And I hear a lot of words. I hear a lot of a good game. This guy's been on the job for 3 months. What is going on, and who's going to be accountable for this?
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we have Ken Branch.
This is from yet another obscene book, The Crown of Gilded Bones, found in at least 3 of the high school libraries. The fingers against my bare skin slid toward the illicit ache. A strangled sound left me as he lazily drew a finger through the gathering wetness there. I lifted my hips against his hand. I started to look back at him. He curled his finger, hitting a spot inside me that caused my legs to stiffen and my toes to curl. Then this, a little further along, sliding his palms up and down my arms. He remained quiet as I drew my hands down his chest. I sank to my knees. I unhooked the flap of his breeches, feeling the rigid thickness there. A taste of smoky spice consumed my senses as I reached in, wrapping my fingers around his warm, hard skin. He was breathing heavily now, and my heart raced as I eased him out. A shudder worked its way through him. You don't have to do this. I want to, I told him. Do you want me to? You can do anything you want to me, and I'll want it. Another tremor worked its way through him. This, my cock in your mouth. I'd have to be dead and nothing but ash not to want that. Smiling, I lowered my head. The salty taste of his skin was a surprise, dancing over my tongue. Tentatively, I moved my hand down his length, exploring as I brought him deeper into my mouth like I had read about in Willa's diary. She'd written about other things. I wanted to do those things. I drew my tongue over his taut skin, finding a little indentation under the ridge of his head and swirling my tongue over it. Fuck, his body jerked. I wasn't expecting that. Fighting a smile, I did it again, and he swore. His entire body flexed, and I felt him throb. Fuck, he rasped. I love that goddamn diary. I flicked my tongue across the head of his cock, marveling at his reaction. A lazy heat swamping my senses. And this later in the book. Castile moved at once, lifting me from his lap and onto my belly. Before I had a chance to take a breath, he thrust deeply into me. He rolled me, grinding his hips against my rear. I cried out, and a word snuck out, a demand that scalded my cheeks. Harder, harder, yes. I curled my upper body around, reaching back and clasping his hips. Please, fuck, he growled, and I felt him jerk deep inside me. He forced an arm under me, curling it just below my breast. Can't believe that's.
Thank you, Ken.
I can't believe it.
Next, we have Lisa. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one in the order. Next, we have Charles Hens.
Yes, thank you for the presentations, board. Thank you for making the point that we wish to develop the whole person as we educate students. And I just also want to read some things that are very disturbing. And this is in 4 different schools. And I think that it's not appropriate. It doesn't build destiny in students. It builds damaged students. So this is from a book called A Court of Silver Flames. Cassian grinned, and his hand at her waist swept down to cup her bare ass. He squeezed one cheek. His hand drifted further south between her legs, feeling her from behind. His fingers brushed against the wetness pooled there, and he swore, drawing his hand back, holding it between them. Her wetness gleamed on his 2 fingers, and his eyes glittered with predatory intent as he lifted them to his mouth and licked them one by one. She stroked her fingers down the length of his cock, still trapped within his pants. He tugged her to the mattress's edge so that her sex was on display for him. He knelt and dragged his tongue clean up her center. Nesta moaned at the same moment he did, and he let her writhe as if he knew it tormented her to undulate. Skipping a bit, he gave her another savoring lick, lingering at the apex of her thighs, sucking the bundle of nerves into his mouth. And skipping again. She couldn't endure it, and she clasped her own breast, desperate for more touch, more sensation. He looked up from between her legs and marked her hand kneading her breast. "Do you like seeing me kneel before you?" he asked. He dipped his tongue into her. "You taste like you do." Nesta arched, thrusting herself further onto his tongue. He gave her another slow lick from the base to top, and as he reached that bundle of nerves, he slid 2 fingers into her. "How do you want it?" He pumped his hand into her again. "Hard," she gasped. A little later, for a moment, she looked between their bodies to where his cock plunged into her, so thick and long and gleaming with her that she tightened around him, her release already building. He felt her inner muscles squeeze him harder and growled, "Fuck, Nesta." And she liked seeing him undone enough that she did it again, clenching on him just as he seated himself fully. She couldn't quite keep the tremor out of her voice as she said, "I want you deeper." As she turned onto her stomach and lifted her backside for him, offering herself, she arched her hips higher, inviting him to feast. I would like to recommend that we remove these books from the library. I don't believe that this helps in any way, in any educational sense, and it's not appropriate.
Thank you, Charles. Next, we have Lisa Despro.
Good evening. I'm going to read from House of Earth and Blood. And before I begin reading from this book, I'm going to read the FCC definition of obscenity as material which appeals to an average person's prurient interest, depicts or describes sexual conduct in a patently offensive way, and which, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. I've heard a lot of comments about wanting our students to thrive. I support that 1,000 billion trillion %. I ask you to listen to this passage and ask yourself, how does this help students thrive? I have to confess, I'm very nervous doing this. It's a very challenging personal thing to know that students have access to this book in all 4 of your high schools. She slid her hand down his front. She palmed his cock, eliciting a hiss from him. "Thank fuck," he breathed. Tongues and teeth and breath. His hands artfully unlocking her bra under her dress. She wound up with her dress pulled down to her waist, her bra gone, and then his mouth and teeth were around her breast, sucking and biting and kissing. She didn't care that she was moaning loud enough for every demon in the pit to hear her, not as long as he switched to her other breast, sucking her nipple deep into his mouth. She drove her hips down on him, release already a rising wave in her. "Fuck, Bryce," he murmured against her breast. I hope you can see I'm shaking. I just find this so offensive." He tugged aside her underwear. He put his fingers directly on her. She moaned. He stroked her, 2 fingers dragging up and down. He whispered against her skin, "Do you taste as good as you feel, Bryce?" "Please find out immediately," she managed to gasp. His other hand cupped her backside. "Don't think I've forgotten this particular asset. I have plans for this beautiful ass, Bryce. Filthy, filthy plans." I want to say to the parents of San Ramon Valley Unified School District and to the board, this is abominable. This is not what people send their children to school for.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, I have OG Strogatz.
Hello again, OG Strogatz, Danville, Alamo, Walnut Creek Branch, American Association of University Women. I'll read my prepared remarks. But before I do, I just want to offer that, and I feel pretty confident speaking on behalf of our branch, that the comments that have been provided thus far are out of context and out of proportion. And I'll leave it at that. On behalf of the branch, I wish to offer remarks regarding comments made at the October 10 board meeting about item 11.5 on that day's agenda, adoption of textbooks, specifically the adoption of the book entitled Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. The book was put forward and was approved by the board as a contemporary novel to supplement the English 12 curriculum. I appreciate the board's October 10 discussion of diverse points of view about the adoption of the book. I want to lift up the points made by Dr. Pettish and Dr. Malloy, including the professional credentials, experience, and expertise of our teachers, their knowledge of relevant state and district standards, the thoughtful, extensive vetting process to evaluate materials suggested for inclusion in the curriculum, including the consideration of age appropriateness criteria from Common Sense Media and other organizations, the consideration of student voice and choice, and the consideration of discomfort expressed by any student or their family member, which can be discussed with the teacher, principal, district staff, or members of the board. Further, Dr. Pettish noted the context in which the book will be made available, not as a textbook required of all students. None of these, I suspect, required of all students at all, but rather, in this particular case with this book, as a 12th grade book club option with descriptions of all book club choices provided to students to help inform their decisions. I also want to lift up the comments offered by Ms. Ayapan regarding her experience and that of other students with faculty members' thoughtful facilitation of classroom discussions about content that may be regarded as dark and/or involving sexuality. Dr. Malloy also noted that given the widespread unregulated access to potentially difficult content outside of the school setting, there can be significant benefit to an educator facilitating age-appropriate in-class discussion of challenging content. The October 10 discussion underscores the care and thoughtfulness that this district applies to curriculum decision-making. AAUW appreciates and thanks you for your commitment to honest, inclusive public education. Thank you.
Thank you, Oji. Next, I have Mike Arata.
I will be reading from a book entitled House of Sky and Breath, which is in at least 3 high schools. But before I do, in a recent 4-to-1 vote, you, the board, adopted a grossly inappropriate novel, the one you've just heard about, as a textbook, despite the sex, drugs, and explicit sadomasochism involved. And last February 21st, public speakers exposed SRVUSD high school library porn. So Doherty Valley librarian Allison Uzene was brought forward to assure everyone that district librarians are absolutely experts at judging library book appropriateness. She alleged such criteria as educational, literary, and artistic value. Those events have motivated wider investigations of the high school library collections, now finding 90 pornographic library books discovered so far. They are represented in the sign, 5 of them in the upper left corner, discussed and exposed last spring already. 85 newly uncovered titles blurred for now. Keep in mind the claim of allegedly expert library book selection as I read excerpts from just one of the books that have been added in Doherty Valley's library during Miss Uzune's tenure there. It's in at least 2 of the other 3 high schools as well. Recall also your board policy 4219.24, which prohibits staff transmission or display of pornography to students. Quoting one of many similar episodes in the book, House of Sky and Breath, Rune flicked his tongue across her clit, savoring taste. She came with a series of moans that nearly had him spilling in his pants. Rune gripped her bare ass, letting her ride his face through each wave of pleasure, moaning himself as he slipped his tongue inside her. Fuck, this was hot. Then later in the book, she said, "There's no way I can fit all of you in me." "Never know until we try," he said. Bryce smiled as her fingers wrapped around his cock, barely able to grasp him fully. She squeezed his base right as her tongue lapped at his tip. Bryce licked again, tongue swirling, then slid his broad head into her mouth. Warm, wet heat enveloped him as she sucked. Yes, fuck yes. What didn't make it into her mouth was squeezed by her hand in flawless tandem. Hunt took in the sight of his cock disappearing into her mouth, her breast swaying down to his balls. Unquote. Those are portions of just 2 scenes in a relentlessly obscene book. Again, one of many dozens of such smut selections in your allegedly expert-run libraries. If stuck-on stupid or pervert parents want to poison their children's minds, hearts, and souls with such depraved material, let them buy it themselves. But taxpayers should not be funding such filth for use in schools. Meanwhile, parents of sufficient means should remove their kids to safer schooling elsewhere. Shame on you people, if shame exists, and heretofore it's not been demonstrated.
Thank you, Mike. Next, we have Julie Blinston.
Good evening. I'm Julie Blinston. I'm a Cal High parent and active volunteer in our exceptional education and social needs community. I'm here tonight because I'd like to highlight a specific CASP data point that we should be talking about. This is the proficiency rate for reported disability. This number is one of the 4 subsets that make up the underreported students category, which also includes ELL, economically disadvantaged, and minority groups. As a group, these 4 categories scored a 56% for ELA and a 56% for math. But when you break it down by group, you will see that reported disability scores 40% for ELA, just above ELL, and 34%, which is the lowest for math. For context, roughly 12% of our district students are classified as special education, which is about 3,000 students. So if you have a student with an IEP, this data applies to you. The vast majority of the students are in the general ed classroom setting, while the others are in SDC mild, moderate, and severe. And not all students take the CASP test, with many opting out, and Mod Severe might take an alternate test. But all IEP students in the tested grades can take it. By any measure, 40% would be an F, a fail. And if the majority of that 40% are in the general ed setting, it begs the question, why are these numbers so low? For a destination or lighthouse district, these numbers are shameful. It makes me wonder, does the CASP test not allow as many accommodations as would normally be allowed in a classroom? Is that test taken by an ELL student, not in their strongest, most fluent language? If a student is unable to type the answers, do they have a designated aide to type the answers for them? Or is it that these kids are not fully accessing and understanding the curriculum? Are they not learning or being tested in a way that best matches their learning style? Are they not fully getting or using their accommodations or utilizing tutorial? Are the teachers not able to support these kids, or do they need additional or different training to better serve these students? Something is not working here, and we need to figure this out. Because here's the thing, these kids are not dumb. They are not unable to learn. They are not unwilling to learn. They simply learn and show mastery in different ways. One could argue that we would not have our technological advances, our Teslas, our Roblox, or even the internet without these kinds of learners and thinkers. And right now they are failing. They are not being set up for success in the future. This is not access to excellence. This is enabling failure. We need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Last we have Faye Isaacson.
Hello, everyone. I'm Faye Isaacson. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a parent in the district and a member of our local PFLAG chapter, the Danville San Ramon Valley chapter. We at PFLAG are allies of the LGBTQ+ community. We have members who are parents, staff, and students of this district. And we are here and attend most of the board meetings to support the students and the community. We want to thank you for allowing us to partner with you on equity and inclusion so that all students, staff, and parents can feel safe and seen in our schools. So I'm here to thank you.
Thank you, Faye. I did want to ask a quick question just about procedure with non-agendized public comment. So do we have in our bylaws that there's a requirement to call cards in the order of submission? No? Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying. So next we will do 11.6 Association President's Report. SEIU is not here, so we'll start with Tammy Castelluccio with CSEA.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Castelluccio, president of CSEA. I would like to congratulate Evan Powell, who was just appointed as the new director of classified HR. I'm looking forward to continue working with Evan in his new role. He will be a great addition to the HR CSEA team. Melanie and I met briefly last week to discuss our reopener negotiations, and we're hoping to bring our joint sunshine proposal to you all at the January meeting. And then wishing everyone a well-deserved winter break, and we're in the home stretch. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Tammy. Next, Laura Finko, our SRVUSD president.
Good evening, everyone. I want to congratulate and thank the youth that were honored here this evening with a huge shout out to the women's flag. Yeah, I did. It's following after you. As educators, it's definitely inspiring to hear about the achievements of our students. We're very proud of them, as we know their parents and coaches are. I would like to begin this evening by acknowledging the Ohlone Nation and the Takan tribe, whose ancestral lands we are on today. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of local Indigenous people and their cultures. The Ohlone Nation has remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. It has been cherished and protected as elders have taught the young through their generations. Please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge First Nation families and communities and to consider how we are and can each in our own way try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. My name is Laura Finko. I'm the president of the San Ramon Valley Education Association, who oversees the nearly 1,700 non-managerial certificated personnel in our district. SRVUSD and our management partners have begun our formal negotiations process for this year. Later this evening, you'll hear about the first interim budget, and I want to thank Evan Miller for the work that he does, especially answering all of my questions and the what ifs. One key to successful negotiations, and something that has changed in the tone of our negotiations the last few years, is the one of assuming best intentions and prioritizing our students, ensuring that they are the focus in everything that we do at the bargaining table, and this includes the budget. This year, SRVUSD members made the commitment that our special education students would be a significant part of our negotiations. Just like all of our students, our SPED students deserve to have the best, not only in class size and supports, but also having the best and most highly qualified educators to help them navigate their educational journey. Unfortunately, the field of special education is not one that has a plethora of teachers clamoring to be part of it as a specialty. One could say it's a buyer's market, and those certified as SPED providers pretty much have many districts available to them. They're looking for districts which have the best working conditions, fair compensation for work done, especially with the ever-rising request for initial assessments, caseloads that are reasonable, and the opportunity to have some life-work balance. If we are going to be the district, SPED work providers who choose to come to work in and stay, we have to be competitive. And as Dee Dee Giudice, our lead negotiator, said yesterday in our negotiations, we have to sparkle. Yesterday, SRVUSD provided management with a draft of our SPED article. It was only a draft, a working document indicating the gaps and needs that our members have identified. If we had unlimited resources, everything in that draft would be a reality. Understanding school finances, we know that that is not our current reality. We hope that with creative collaboration and continued support from our community, especially those who vote, we will be able to chip away at the needs and give our students what they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. All right, next we move on to 11.7 Student Board Member Report. Anya?
Hi, everyone. So I was just at the Grading Reform Committee meeting right before this, so I wanted to take a second to express how important that work is to students. You know, just from conversations and being in hallways and interacting with student senators, there really is this culture of fear around grades right now. And that distracts from building this love for learning, especially as you go into high school. And you know, that's something we talk about a lot with academics and pressure. And I think what the committee is doing is looking at the role grades play in that, and is trying to make it a reflection of learning and of growth. And I think it's just so important. And a lot of students do support that idea of time, choice, and feedback. But there is this big emphasis of students who are unsure of the system changing, what that means for college admissions and all those kinds of things. So it's important to take all those perspectives into consideration, and making sure that students understand the rationale of why this is happening and what's going on. There's a lot of time spent informing staff and teachers, of course, but I think students do need to be need to be more involved in this conversation. So to any students watching right now, I really encourage you to get involved with the committee or just reach out with feedback, because this really is an opportunity to see tangible changes to practices, and I think that's really important. I attended the second LCAP meeting yesterday and ended up having a discussion with students about AI and its integration into the classroom to help teachers provide quicker feedback. And there were mixed perspectives and opinions on how we should do that. Some students have expressed, you know, or are reluctant about the quality of feedback that AI can give, while others are excited about the potential for increased efficiency and for teachers to give more feedback. So it's really trying to figure out the trade-off between the two and finding this balance. And last week, I had the chance to attend an event hosted by the Learning Policy Institute to highlight the local control funding formula's 10th anniversary. So that was really cool to see the new research that's being put out about closing achievement gaps, and even at SRVUSD where we are outperforming the state on average by CASP data, looking at specific demographics and looking at the achievement gaps that exist there, and really looking to allocate resources within our LCAP to address those issues. And I'll touch on a couple of things from earlier in November and late October, as I wasn't able to be here for the last board meeting. There was a sickness going around. I was at a panel on ethnic studies curriculum and looking at lesson plans, which was super, super exciting. There were students there who were talking about addressing current events thoughtfully and facilitating respectful dialogue, because of course it is challenging, but school is the place where we learn to have these conversations. And just recognizing the potential with ethnic studies being a 1 semester graduation requirement, recognizing the potential for generalizations of very complex topics to happen, and making sure that's front of mind when we're looking at creating lesson plans that really do address issues with the care and attention that they deserve. So I really hope for more of those in the future, and for more students to be involved with that as well. And I was at a student conference earlier in November, and some of the big things that came up were financial literacy and restorative justice as just big issues across California. And these are issues I've heard from students within SRVUSD, whether from student senators or just from different clubs and advocacy groups within the district. So it was really great to be able to connect with them and provide the insights that I was able to gain from just connecting with students across the state. And then the student senate met on Monday, and we were able to hear from administrators from HR, our chef from nutrition, board members, and members of the communication team. So that was really exciting for students to be able to see like all these different working parts of the district. We talked about diversifying staff and some of the initiatives that are happening with that, the ways in which students can hold teachers accountable, and the methods for them to do so. Improving bathrooms by increasing student pride in their facilities is something that's happening within the Senate that I'm really excited about. Of course, lunch, which always sparks a lot of conversation. But overall, there are some really positive changes just across the high schools and the middle schools. And, I've been doing this for the last year, so I'm able to see that progress, and it's really inspiring. And I was able to promote my student trustee office hours, which I'm going to do again. They're happening next Thursday, the 21st, from 4:30 to 6. And I really, really encourage students to attend if they have concerns or questions, or they just want to talk and learn more about what the student board member role is, or about any of the things I talked about in my report. And I really do want this to become a consistent channel of communication for student board members down the line to carry on. So it's something that all students within the district are familiar with, and they know like this is how we get in touch with what's happening at the district. So yeah, that's just kind of my little thing for today. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you so much, Anya. Next, we have the superintendent's report, 11.8. Dr. Malloy.
Thank you, President Bratt. And I too, on behalf of our cabinet team and our staff, want to thank you, Trustee Hurd, for your leadership over the last year. We appreciate you a lot, and for the ways in which you provided that effective leadership. We're thankful, and we are excited to welcome you to your new role and to do everything we can to support you as well, President Bratt. And you shared a comment earlier that was going to be the foundation of my report, so I'm going to pick up on it. And at cabinet on Tuesday, we spend some time thinking about all of the things that have happened COVID time till now. And I'll comment briefly on the historical COVID pieces in a minute, but what we were able to celebrate in the midst of all the challenges, I'm certainly accepting those, is that through your leadership, we are seeing a number of things unfold. from what I call the 30,000 feet to the ground. The 30,000 feet is our strategic directions. Clearly stated, high level, but there's a direction, there's a North Star. Our learner profile are those characteristics that allow kids to thrive. And frankly, as we understand even in this room, the complexities of our world are right here. And our success at helping our kids navigate the world that we're in and the world that's coming is going to take levels of critical thinking and creativity, collaboration and communication, the ability to adapt. That's what it's about. And though content has a place, and we're not stepping away from that, every single person who speaks less about content and more about what we do with it, how we navigate it, how we support each other to be a community in the face of it, our learner profile. Our dashboard takes us to the next level, and next month you're going to see that we did some learning over the first year. We hadn't had one before outside of the California dashboard, and we learned some lessons about what does it mean to create effective baseline, what does it mean to have effective measurements, and how do we show improvement. So more to come on that, but that's a work in progress. So yes, we're working on literacy, and you know all about that. We're working on math, and we've got some ways to go there, but there's some great work happening. Tonight's report probably says to me that the next step has been taken, and I'm so grateful to the team for it, because we can't say we honor different pathways. We can't say there are multiple ways for kids to thrive and not actually have structural pieces that speak to it. And we heard from one of our speakers earlier about our students with special education needs. I would argue that the whole system, not just San Ramon, says that kids are supposed to learn a certain way, be assessed a certain way, and when the standards are delivered in a certain way, certain kids are successful and certain kids aren't. I'm going to push it a little further. If we truly believe that public education is for all, which I hope we do, at least that's what we say, then we're going to work really hard to take down all those barriers. Some of them aren't in our control. For example, how kids are assessed on a CASP exam is not, but a lot is in our control. And if we do believe that all kids should be successful, it means that we got to figure out what's getting in the way. But there's also another challenge. Our whole society is based on who's in front and who's not. Let's just put it out there. Not everybody believes what I just said, but when you talk about our structures and when we try to speak about creating the conditions for all, one of the first challenges that comes back to us is that the only way you could do this is to water it all down. The rigor will be gone, the standards will be lost. And I struggle with that because I'm saying we all agree we're diverse and distinct and different and unique, and yet there's only one way to be successful. There's only one way to be assessed. There's only one way to get to the next level. I think we all say no, but when we look deeply at how the collective we does our work, it actually sustains that status quo. So my excitement for the work that you are helping us lead is, it's not easy. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of time that's necessary for dialogue, because we've got to spend time with these issues if we truly believe that each and every student in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District deserves to be successful. And I think that that's going to be the next step. And I know that we can do it. We heard tonight, our resources are very finite. As you all know, this is my 5th district, 3rd as a superintendent. And it keeps us up at night to figure out how do we afford what we know our kids deserve and need. I've been doing with you visits to our schools. And at each school, we sit with a circle of students and we sit with our staff. I can tell you that every single thing, and I'm not exaggerating, that our staff believes they need to be effective, more effective than they already are, is all reasonable. The hard part is we struggle to actually afford some of what's reasonable. So that is all part of the work that we also need to do. My last comment, which is something you've heard me say all the time. I know it's getting harder and harder, I think, in our culture, not just San Ramon, to really create effective dialogue where we truly understand the differences of our opinions the insights that we bring in a way that might help us actually become closer, not apart. A room like this doesn't lend itself to that. And I understand we have a role to play when we're in here once a month, but I'm grateful to you because you all are doing office hours. You're all out in the community. I'm grateful to our team. I'm grateful to our staff, to our students, because what is happening that we don't get to see in here is all kinds of circles. They're happening all around the district right now. And what's emerging from those circles is real dialogue, not always agreement. And what's coming from those discussions is wisdom. And that is the wisdom that we'll continue to bring to you. Of course, you're gathering wisdom in all the places that you are. We listen to our students, we staff, our community, and we're going to get to a better place one step at a time. So I'm excited because tonight's report is the next step to actually fulfill what you have asked us to do, which is broaden the definition of success on the foundation of academic excellence so all kids can thrive, which means they're all our kids. All our kids will not thrive the same way. And that's what we're headed towards. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Malloy. Next, we move into action items. So we have 12.1, consideration of acceptance of the 23-24 first interim financial report. That's with Assistant Superintendent Stella Kemp and Executive Director Evan Miller. Thank you.
Good evening, trustees and Dr. Malloy and cabinet and our audience that is here this evening. Each year we go through a cycle with our budget that allows us to identify where we are in terms of the budget projections, where we need to make adjustments, and we report these out in the interim budget reports. Tonight in the interim budget report, we're going to go over the general fund, one-time funding, our multi-year projections, and then at the end, we will certify the budget that will be submitted to the county later this month. And again, we shared this slide with you last year regarding the various reports that we're required to do each year. This first interim is actually for the period of July 1 through October 31st, and we are meeting the deadline by bringing it to you by December the 15th. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to my colleague in crime here, Mr. Evan Miller, and he will go over the details of the first interim.
Thank you, Dr. Kemp, members of the board, cabinet, and public. First off, I wanted to acknowledge the hard work that the entire budget team puts into this report. So thank you to the staff there. Just as a quick overview, the purpose is to evaluate our financial position. This is the first of those two reports and is part of the fiscal oversight process. Tonight, we will recommend a positive certification that we will then pass along to the county office of ed, who will certify and report that to the state. So our overview, this first slide shows some of the changes in our ADA and enrollment assumptions, and then revenue and expenditures from our original adopted budget back in June till where we are now. So ADA and enrollment pretty much the same, unchanged. The final census day enrollment data does need to be certified within a couple days, and we think it'll be slightly higher than this, but we did budget pretty well on enrollment. Revenue expenditures, we will kind of discuss the delta between adopted budget and first interim in the next few slides. I did want to point out, and then salaries and benefits, personnel expenditures as well. So revenue adjustments, LCFF has a very modest increase. The bulk of that increase, 2.45, is on the local side, and the bulk of that is in interest. We've seen interest rates continue to rise, and so we have increased our projections for how much we expect to earn on the dollars that are over at the county. The other things I wanted to point out here, increases to arts and music in schools. So Prop 28, we finally got our allocations from the state at about $3.5 million. A reminder that we will be rolling most of those funds to next year and spend them in accordance with the ballot measure on personnel. We have released about 10% of those funds to school sites to use for supplies. And so those sites are in the process of building those plans. Some plans have been approved. We will roll them all together and bring them to the board at some point this spring. And then other projections, I think the big ones here, the CalShape Award to do some ventilation improvement across the district. So we've seen some increases in our deferred revenue on COVID, site restricted revenue. So, but the big pieces there, I think, are the Prop 28 and CalShape. On the expenditure side, so we did see a decrease in classified staffing. Most of that is due to unfilled positions. So we have backfilled those with contractors. So we see a corresponding increase over on special ed contractor side. For textbook adoptions, some of that is our monies that we thought we would spend, but due to the accounting, spent them actually this year. So there is some carryover. And then as we got that arts and music and instructional materials block grant back, we budgeted some additional adoptions there. Increase in special education services there is a large amount. So services and yeah, as we see our increase in special ed population, we see an increase in the services we're providing. We see that small amount for Prop 28 arts and music supplies. CalShape, and then on the other restricted carryover 2.1, those are a few different state grants, the classified school employee summer assistance grant, a little less than $1 million, kitchen infrastructure improvement grants, a little less than $1 million, and then our federal increases. On the site carryover, those are sports or other external funds that are either increased expenditures or carryover from last year. And then some slight increases in utilities, capital outlay. And then the last line there, a few years back, we received a gift from a foundation or a trust to support special ed students at one of our high schools. We had that held in Fund 1. We received guidance from the county that it actually should live in a separate fund, Fund 73, and so we have transferred that out. Here, I think the board opened up that fund and it took. Yes, so it's available for scholarships. Again, we always want to give a picture of where we are with our one-time funds. So this is a change in revenues from adopted budget. Again, we'll see the largest increases there are in those block grants that we thought would be clawed back and were partially restored. We always want to point these out, I think, because we know that as these funds are exhausted, we will have to make some decisions about the programs that are supported. So liaison, summer school, back before and after school intervention, one-to-one devices, these are all things that are being supported right now. That we will have to make some decisions about moving forward. So I want to continue to highlight these for you. That is it for the current year. So on the MYP, I think we always want to start off with our ADA and enrollment projections. We continue to project a decline, about 500 students per year in enrollment. I think this chart is especially helpful because we are currently funded on the prior 3-year average ADA. That includes 2021, and we can see that that ADA was higher than enrollment because of a COVID hold harmless. So as we move forward in the MYP, we'll see that protection drop off, and we'll see our ADA continue to fall, and so it'll be will lead to further declines in revenues.
So we just completed our enrollment ADA projection with our demographer, and we are planning to bring to the board 10-year demographic study to show the fluctuations and adjustments that we're going to see across the district in different attendance areas for our students. So you'll be able to see what this looks like and how there's like a bubble that's moving through, and then there's appears to be a second bubble coming. So we'll see kind of a wave, an S wave for the next 10 years.
And then I think I'll just, this projection was completed prior to getting that report, and the report is still just a draft. So we will update our enrollment projections based on the data in that report for second interim. So the assumptions behind our MYP are laid out here. The changes from our adopted budget enrollment, we have declining a little bit faster. I think it was about 450 at adopted budget. Now we're expecting a decline of about 500 students each year. ADA ratio stays about the same. Our unduplicated percentage continues to rise slightly. The LCFF COLA, we do want to point out in 24-25, this is based on the enacted state budget. It was projected to be nearly 4%. They've received almost all of the data points, I think, for next year's COLA. They're missing one, and right now it looks like it'll be between 1% and 2%. So at second interim, we'll see the impact of much lower COLA combined with our declining enrollment in our LCFF revenues. STRS contribution rates have stayed the same. PERS, these are the same as that adopted budget, but we have received updated projections. It looks like PERS rates will continue to increase in the out years. So some increased cost pressures and lower revenue likely at second interim. But when we roll those assumptions in with our current year budgets and, you know, remove one-time expenditures that we know will not be occurring in the out years, it gives us our MYP. Important to note here, this is our combined general fund, so we do see a deficit there. On the unrestricted side, there is a small surplus in the current year, and then increasing deficits in the out years. So again, something that we will have to address. I think that is it for this slide. And then finally, the impact on our fund balance. This is what we base our certification off. We are required to have a REU of reserve for economic uncertainty of about 3%, and we do meet that. It is held in Fund 17, and then with additional assigned balances in Fund 1. This picture is slightly better than the one that we saw at adopted budget, and there's two primary reasons for that. On the unrestricted side, we did end the year with a small surplus, and at adopted budget, we were projecting a small deficit. So there was an additional, I think, about $5 million there. And then in the third year at adopted budget, we did not project renewal of the parcel tax, but for this MYP we did. So there is additional revenue on the unrestricted side in 25-26. So those are the two main differences, I think, that show a higher fund balance than we did at adopted budget. It is still meeting our minimum REU and includes a higher fund balance than we did at adopted budget, which is why we are recommending a positive certification that we can meet our obligations throughout this MYP. And then I think some of the things that we really want to highlight that are things to really consider as we move forward in the MYP. Just last week, the Legislative Analyst's Office released their budget outlook. It is a month later than it usually is, and that was delayed because of our delayed tax filings. The picture, they call it a budget problem. It, I think, was a $68 billion budget problem over the budget period, which is a 3-year period, primarily driven by lower revenues in 22-23 of about $24 billion. So they have some solutions there. We'll get our first look, of course, in January at how the governor will approach that. And then over the course of the next 6 months, how the legislature and we'll get signals, I think, about how the state will address their budget problem. Again, the reminder about one-time revenues. Declining enrollment in ADA will continue to be pressure for us, and then that COLA uncertainty that we have projected right now of 4% COLA, and it is likely to be much lower. And then finally, that parcel tax expiration. So there are some revenue pressures that we are concerned about. On the expenditure side, there are the personnel costs, and then those expenditures of the one-time funds that are ending. So we know we have some work to do as we move forward with some additional data points around COLA, budget, and parcel tax still to come, and we'll see those at second interim.
So I just wanted to talk about the report that we'll be sending to the county. So in our report where we are certifying the first interim, we are taking into account that the parcel tax would get passed. And that's a key point that I wanted to share with the board. So we're assuming that it's going to be successful. And so keeping that in mind, that's one of the assumptions that we're making as we're developing this first interim.
I think that's it. This is just the language around why we believe this is a positive certification for the first interim budget report. And I think with that, oh, right, of course, reminders that the governor will have his budget proposal in mid-January, second interim in March, and then May and June, the real work for the next budget and MYP. That for the questions and comments.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. The surplus that we have from this year, is that mainly because of open positions not being filled?
I think, yeah, it was a combination of lower than expected expenditures and higher than expected revenues. I think there were multiple things that came through. Definitely a portion of that is due to open positions.
So when you do the new budget, do you take those into consideration as far as how much you decide to allocate in the budget for personnel versus other things that may be changed or were not spent?
For the next year's budget or in the interim report?
Well, in the interim report, when you're adjusting everything, are you taking that into consideration so that we're closer to where we really are versus, you know, where we thought we would be? I mean, and that's the reason for the adjustment. So
Yeah,
you take those.
we do, especially like on the special ed side, we see the reduction in classified salaries,
Right.
the increase on the services side. I think it depends position on position. And so do we have a position that's posted and that we believe will be filled? We will budget for it. But if we believe it will not be, we will reduce it here.
Okay, yeah, you answered my question. Thank you.
I have one quick question on the parcel tax. So that's being baked into the cake. What component of the parcel tax are you baking into the cake at this point?
The renewal, the 144 per parcel renewal.
Yeah, and that's it.
That's it.
Okay.
So is the reason to assume that it passes so we can get the positive certification and that we don't have to identify potential cuts if we lose that $6.8 billion.
Yes.
But of course, if it doesn't pass, we will identify those, but that's an allowable
Yes, it's
part
an
of
allowable.
the 3-year thing.
Yes.
Because we can correct it in.
Yeah, so in the
May.
criterion
Well, no.
standards report, which is it's a part of our first interim, it does ask that question, whether or not you have baked into your assumptions the renewal of a parcel tax. When we brought the budget to you in June, we did not have it in there, but now we have put it back in there so that we have a certified budget.
And I appreciate you really like calling that out in the report because it's an almost $7 million swing one way or the other per year. So it's not that it's not being transparent. I just wondered about kind of the mechanics of how and why, and it makes sense. So thank you.
Yes.
And any public comment? We don't have any cards, so. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
all
Are
your
we
hard work.
taking action?
Appreciate
So we need a
it.
motion.
Evidence.
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Make a motion to approve the first interim.
A second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Roll call vote, Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Van Zee.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to 12.2, consideration of adoption of revision to board policies and administrative regulations. So that would be Executive Director Linda Rowley-Tom.
Good evening again. We are bringing forth for revision for BPs and ARs related to the provision of special education services for students with disabilities. We are bringing these board policies forward because we needed to update language to reflect the recommended changes by the California School Boards Association and to keep us in compliance with revised education code related to these provisions. So one thing to note in each of the board policies and the administrative regulations is that there is a new format to them so that all of the education code references, rather than being interspersed within the body of the document, now are at the end of the document. To briefly summarize in each of the four that we have brought forward, for BP and AR 6159 individualized education program, we're updating the language to related to the rights of foster parents. We have now included the emergency circumstances provision that was added as the result of not only the COVID-19 pandemic, but the California wildfires and is required by California Education Code. Language has been added related to the provision of orientation and mobility services, as well as assistive technology services, again, as ordered by current education code. And the document clarifies parental consent components of the IEP. It actually specifies in greater detail than it did previously as to how parents can consent to the IEP and clarifies the provision of FAPE for students who are suspended or expelled and or incarcerated. So those are the updated provisions in summary within that 6159. Within 6159.1, which is our procedural safeguards, it is updated to reflect the latest procedural safeguards document in line with the California Department of Education that was done in January of 2022. It adds a provision for local resolution of disputes, what we like to call alternative dispute resolution. That was codified in trailer bill language in the last governor's budget. It also clarifies the statute of limitations and process for state complaints. In 6164.4, which is the identification and evaluation of individuals for special education, the BP and AR updates clarifies the child find process and the referral process. It also talks in greater detail about the process of evaluation, including timelines for both initial evaluations and 3-year reevaluations. It also talks specifically about the required qualifications of all assessors for special education assessments. It actually adds greater detail that was what was in the previous policy and all required by Ed Code. In BPAR 6164.41, which is children with disabilities who are enrolled by their parents in private schools, it essentially cleaned up the language and made it more clear as to what that is in alignment with current education code. So those are the changes to those 4 BPs and ARs that we're bringing forth tonight in summary.
Thank you. Does any board members have any questions, comments? No? Okay. And I don't believe we have public comment. All right. So I will need a motion.
I'll move approval of these 4, well, actually 8, because it's 2 for each one, BP and AR changes. And I just want to comment that, usually these are in a 2-step process, but this time it's not because it really is all stuff we have to do. Right?
I'll second that.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Van Zee. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Van Zee.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Brown.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. All right. So now we'll move on to 12.3, consideration of appointment of delegate to California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly. So I believe Rachel.
Yeah, so we wanted to give a little bit of background about this. The cover sheet talks about what the delegate assembly is, and it's a functioning process of the California School Boards Association. When a school district has 30,000 students or more, they're entitled to appoint their own delegate, not that basically automatically gets on, as opposed to running in the election that we typically vote on in February or March. And we realized this a few years back of, oh, wow, we were entitled to this extra representation. So I have been serving in that role since that time. And we received a notification in October that because our enrollment had dropped below 30,000, that we were losing this spot. And we thought, okay, fine. Well, we learned at Delegate Assembly right before the CSBA conference that they were pausing that rescission or rescinding of our person. So I was going to just say, hey, I'll do it again, but I got elected to be the director for our region and serve on the board of directors. So someone else on our board can serve in that appointed capacity if they would like to. And so while we were at CSBA, we just broached it, and Susanna said she was interested. So I would like to nominate Susanna as our appointed delegate. And then it's just a matter of, we fill out one form nominating her, and then she fills out a bio sheet, and we submit all that by January 7th. And that's how it works.
Right. Do we need a second?
She has to accept the nomination.
Does she have to give like a speech first or something?
I'll do my best to represent. No, I will. I am interested, and yeah, I was going to say I'll do my best to represent our school district with CSBA and to bring actually, to them on what is important and what our interests actually.
And we actually have to take an action to appoint her.
Yeah.
And we fill out the paperwork.
Yeah, and to clarify, this is an appointment. It doesn't then go to the region for all boards to vote on.
It's just a straight ride.
And so then we will have two delegates, appointed. That's pretty amazing for us. So on a state level. Okay, so can I get a motion to?
I'll move that we appoint Susanna as our appointed delegate.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Ipen.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Van Zee.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Braff.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, and then I do want to, we did push to this item, the appointment of the Contra Costa County School Board Association representative. So previously last year, that was you, Rachel. And you had brought to us the idea of perhaps having a conversation once we had the two delegates to decide if someone else wanted to be the representative for the County School Board Association.
And it probably makes sense for it to be Susanna or me, just either way we want to do it. And that doesn't have to change this time of year,
Oh, okay.
however we want to do it. Maybe Susanna wants to see what she's gotten herself into, and then it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'll be going to that meeting anyway as the director, so.
Right, okay. Susanna, do you have an opinion?
No, yeah, I think I would like to, see what this position is, and then attend the meetings and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great.
The county level thing is really more of just a friendly association among trustees in the county. It's not really an official part of the chain of command of CSBA.
Yeah. Okay. All right, great. Thank you. So now we move on to informational items. So 13.1, general obligation bond measure D update. So Director Aaron Hurst.
Thank you for seeing.
We are here to wrap up your evening.
Best for last.
Yes. Well, first of all, before I start, I want to introduce you to Aaron Hurst, who is our Director of Facilities Planning, Use, and Construction. Is that right? Planning, Use, and Construction. And in the back, we have our Executive Director of Business Services, Business Operations, Mr. Abdul Mixon, who's joined us this evening as well. Should there be any questions related to any M&O and stuff that's related to this. So I just want to start, and Aaron and I are going to kind of tag team a little bit on this, start with just letting the board know that we're here this evening to give you an update on Measure D, which was passed by the voters in 2012. We're really thankful for their support of our school district. And we wanted to share with you this evening an overview of kind of where these $260 million have gone in the past 11 years to support our classrooms, the upgrades that we've done to the schools to avoid overcrowding, the fire, security, and earthquake safety work that we've done, science labs, technology infrastructure, energy efficiency, and all of those things that were listed in this bond measure. And as we're coming to the end of this, and by the way, the board has received regular updates from FOAC. So you've seen the budget, you've seen the allocations, you've seen what we've done. As we're coming towards the end of this bond, we have a little money left over, and we want to share with you what we think where the rest of those dollars need to go. And I'll talk with you a little bit later about how we're going to supplement that. So now Erin's been leading this work, and I'm going to have her talk a little bit about the project highlights.
Okay. Ready? Sure. Yes. Bella Vista is a new campus, a relatively new campus, and it is the result of a three-way partnership between the city of San Ramon, developer, and our district. Chappelle Homes provided the land to the district, including the playfields, also serving as a permanent parkland for the city of San Ramon. The project was completed in 2016, and with this project, the district is continuing the commitment to support neighborhood schools. Oh yeah, Tucker, thanks. One of the other large projects was transformative to the district's oldest campus by replacing several single-story buildings, adding a state-of-the-art 3-story, 52 classroom building, including 12 modern science labs and an expansive quad. The project was originally planned to be a 3-phase project, construction-wise, but due to the economy of scale and the favorable construction climate, the district elected to perform this project in 1 phase. Additionally, at the end of the primary construction, the multi-use field was rebuilt in a former location of practice fields at the campus. The project also included a partnership with the town of Danville to expand the parking to relieve neighborhood traffic congestion and allow additional parking spaces for the town's use outside of the school hours. The construction began in 2016 and was completed in August 2019. Yes. Yep. Stone Valley Middle School. The project at Stone Valley Middle School was similar to the San Ramon High project in that it replaced old existing single-story classroom buildings with a 2-story, 27 classroom building featuring 4 science classrooms, including a quad, and replacing the undersized multi-use cafeteria and athletic fields. Similar to the San Ramon High project, the district elected to perform this project in a single phase. As part of Measure D as well, there were 10 different modernizations, 1 middle school, 1 high school, and 8 elementary schools. Charlotte Woods, Doherty High, Alamo, Sycamore Elementary School, Green Valley, Rancho Romero, Vista Grande, Golden View, Montevideo, and Twin Creeks. The improvements for the modernization projects ranged between energy efficient building systems, technology upgrades, replacement of doors, windows, roofing, fire life safety, new finishes, and of course, ADA improvements. Cal High had a few projects going on there. There were 12 science classroom modernizations that included the epoxy surfaces in the classroom, in the science cabinets in the classroom. There are additional technology and new finishes. Also, there was the pedestrian bridge that crossed over the canal
and allowing access to the Iron Horse Trail for the neighborhoods on the other side of the canal. The Commons and Central Kitchen, they've had a lot of equipment added into the Central Kitchen. We actually, as part of the oversight committee, we did a tour of that facility. The kitchen was generally renovated, including rebuilding the indoor freezer and building a new outdoor freezer. The loading dock was reconstructed and a shelter over the dock was installed to streamline the delivery process. This is supporting the goal of the Child Nutrition Department, scratch cooking to provide healthy, affordable, and tasty meals. We had a series of smaller projects, and it was ranged from classroom technology infrastructure, updating classrooms with the data ports, projectors, clock, speakers, and Wi-Fi. Del Amigo had their fire alarm system and intercom systems updated, and there were restroom improvements at Diablo Vista Middle School and Los Cerros Middle School, with also ADA improvements at those locations. And the district, early on in the bond project, added some additional classrooms at Tassajara Hills to prevent overcrowding classrooms. We've also had a series of athletic related projects in terms of bleachers. The Monte Vista home bleachers and press box were updated as part of those improvements. San Ramon High also had their home and visitor bleachers and press box stadium updated. And we are currently under construction at Cal High for replacement of the home and press box at that campus. The ADA improvements, for every project that we do that's state required, we have ADA path of travel. That includes drop-off zones, restroom upgrades, and playgrounds were also adjusted and ensured that we had path of travel to the playgrounds and components within the playground that were ADA compliant. There's also a lot of, in conjunction with all of the modernizations, we had a lot of updating in terms of replacement of energy management components, including HVAC upgrades, lighting updates, and mechanical systems. Gating and fencing has been improved and added at many campuses, and we have some of those sites that are noted are at Rancho Romero, Sycamore Elementary School, Vista Grande, Monterre, Country Club, Pine Valley, Neil Armstrong, Green Valley, and San Ramon High. And sort of going back a bit to the play structures, all of the kinder yards now have TK compliant play structures. And most recently, security cameras have been installed at all the campuses, as well as upgrading the existing cameras. 3 campuses had seismic retrofits. The entire campus of Walt Disney and Neil Armstrong were required to be seismically upgraded, as was the big gymnasium at Monte Vista High. Both of those were early on in the bond project. And with one of the notes that I have here is that I want to share with everybody that apart from the sort of the big 3 projects, Bella Vista, San Ramon High, and Stone Valley, all of these projects have been managed by in-house project managers throughout the course of this bond program.
I want to just say to the board, you know, the safety is our first priority as a school district, is making sure we have safe campuses and safe learning environments. And these bond dollars have gone a long way to making sure our HVAC and our classrooms are healthy. We've improved lighting. We've improved our safety with our security cameras. We've finished the installation of that. And we have now all of our security cameras up onto a cloud so they can be accessed anywhere that an individual has an account, can get into it 24/7. We do have still some more work to do. We have some things that we need to continue to and we'll come to that in just a second, that we continue to need to invest in. But I think one of the big things about this project, and you've heard about our accountability through the FOAC reports, is that we took $260 million and turned it into $270 million. So we have been able to leverage interest. We took the interest income, we put it back into the bond projects. We had some contributions from the town of Danville. We had a little grant from state CTE. We have a little bit of money left over. So we want to talk to you a little bit about this money that's left over and what we would like to do with it. And and by the way, even though it says on this slide that we've spent 258 million, we have some encumbered projects, meaning those are projects where we've set the dollars aside for those projects to be completed. And what's remaining in here is 3.2 million. So in those encumbered projects, you can see there, those are some of the dollars that we have set aside for projects. We've got some stuff at Monte Vista High School. We've got some technology, playgrounds, a little bit of fencing money, the bleachers, of course, at Cal High. And then we've also got program salaries and contracts for the program managers and the individuals that are associated with the Measure D bond. So that's kind of takes care of that 9.475 million that's remaining in Measure D. And then we have this 3.2 million. So what we'd like to do is to take, we believe that it's going to cost about 5 million to complete the fencing projects that are still out there. And part of our work as a district, when we have bond measures, is we do get a little bit of state reimbursement. And what we're going to do is we're going to use some of the state reimbursement dollars to finish out the safety and fencing, security around the school. So about $5 million more, and then finish out the play structures in our elementary schools. So we still have elementary schools that need some play structures. We have about 1.2 million that we will fund out of Measure D, about 8 million, about 6.7 million that will contribute from our Fund 21 local building fund. And altogether, we have about 13 million left that we'd like to spend on fencing and play structures and get those things wrapped up. So our elementary schools are, and the remaining middle school, like Los Cerros, where we need to finish the fencing, and probably a little fencing work at Cal High, right? Yes. And that is it. That's information for you. So where we're headed.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions?
I just wanted to add a comment. I think great story, great recap of how the bonds have been spent. And I just think there's one more thing to add, just for the sake of the community, was the really creative and clever financing changes that happened a few years back pre-COVID to really get us to take advantage of the low rates and help with our, what would you call it, our borrowing capacity. I'm sure you know how to represent it better than I do, Stella.
Yes, well, our bond measures are shortly going to be paid off. And right now we have in San Ramon Valley a cap of $75 per 100,000 assessed assessed property value. So it looks like we'll be paying those bonds off shortly. We do have, because we have more bonding capacity, we do have the ability to go out potentially for another bond. If the board would like for me to entertain that, I could bring that back to you later. And right now we're working on our long range facility master plan. I'd like to present that to you and allow the board to establish some priorities for us. And then we can prepare to consider this at a future date. But yes, we have plenty of assessed value out there.
And it needs to be brought up because these bonds have been very well executed and very well managed. And it's a success story that we really can't say too often. We've been good stewards of our taxpayers.
Yes, and I wanted just to point out that generally school districts will do a bond approximately every 10 years. The last time a bond was brought to the community was in 2012. So it's kind of, about time to think about it. And, regardless of what the board decides to do, there will always be building projects. We do an amazing job in our M&O team. We set aside our required 3% of expenditures for our maintenance, ongoing maintenance. And Mr. Mixon's done a great job of keeping our schools, ready. We've done a lot of work on our downspouts, getting ready for winter, cleaning out gutters, repairing asphalt, all those things, fencing, little fencing repairs here and there. All those things are, part of our budget, and they're necessary to maintain, our campuses. At the same time, educational systems are changing. We have a requirement to offer TK now. There are facility requirements that go with that. And what we're doing right now is we're thinking about and we're looking at when are buildings eligible for state dollars. And every 25 years, buildings are eligible for state dollars. So what you do is you get creative with your financing. What can you spend state dollars? What can you ask for reimbursement from the state for if the state passes their own state bond measure? And what are we as a district going to request of our community should we go there?
I just wanted to reiterate on what Rachel said. I want to give a shout out to the FOAC because I spent 3 years on the FOAC, and there were so many professionals, way smarter than me, people on the FOAC who really did help manage and make sure that we were good stewards, along with the board and the personnel from, at the time, the assistant superintendent of facilities were amazing. And I was heavily involved in the biggest project we've ever done. I noticed you didn't put price tags on those, but San Ramon Valley High School was $64 million. So that was really a huge, huge project, and a shout out to the town of Danville and Renee Morgan, who worked with me to get that parking lot. So it was a win-win for everybody. And it was, I think we didn't plan on doing it the way that we did, but I think it was the smartest way to do it, and it came out beautifully. So I think everybody in that community was grateful for that.
Yeah, just want to add that I think thank you for also for the maintenance, right? I mean, we saw the big projects, but also the maintenance that are done regularly, because actually maintaining facilities saves us money and saves our taxpayers money, rather than letting something go and then having to really invest even more money, right? So yeah, that's a big projects on maintaining everything on all the different 35 campuses, right? That's a big job. Sorry, I was going somewhere with this. I just wanted to I lost my thought, but I want to thank everyone on the facilities department on keeping up, I guess, our facilities, because that actually goes towards, I think I'm getting it back now. It goes towards both working conditions and study conditions for our students and for our staff. And that goes a lot with, the social emotional health, as well as they can focus on learning and teaching and everything. I mean, that's part of the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx anything, but we had a first rainfall recently, right?
Yeah.
We had 0 leaks. Yes. And I knock on wood. And that's Abdul and his team, and facilities. It is a team effort, and we've done some things over the last few months to really kind of bring these departments together, so they're working together to leverage our maintenance dollars with our bond dollars, with our local building fund, with all those things, so we can provide the best for our staff and our students and staff.
Thank you. Thank you for the stewardship that you and your team do for our facilities. And I think it shows our community how valuable the school district is within our community when they can see schools that are well maintained, new projects happening within them, and the growth that happens. So thank you so much. So next we move to administrative matters, and we have 15.1 board members reports. We'll start with Rachel.
Sure, I have a few things. Shelley and I have both been out and about in the community doing our Ambassador 2.0 presentations, which is really, talking about how great the district is and then making the case for what we need to do to stay great and that we really need to renew the parcel tax. I've really enjoyed the presentations that I've done. I've been to Stone Valley Country Club, Bollinger Canyon, Diablo Vista, and last night Doherty Valley PTSA. And it's just really great to do those in person and get the eye contact and the nods. And I feel like we're making good headway in terms of bringing our parent community, the engaged parents along, and hopefully the message is well received and they'll all support it. I attended on behalf of the district, I kind of got to host the Truth About Fentanyl event Monday night. Oh my gosh, talk about eye-opening and candidly scary. It was not recorded, and that was because the representative from the narcotics division in San Francisco couldn't be recorded. Hard to go to sleep after hearing what he said, but I highly recommend that anyone in the community go to one of those presentations because it's important and it's eye-opening, and it's a very different world in terms of casual use of things. This is not about that. This is about, it felt like kind of scared straight kind of stuff, but like we all really need to hear it. So enough about that. I really enjoyed the time at CSBA with all of you. All 5 trustees and Dr. Malloy were able to attend. It was 2.5 or 3, depending on who you were, days of learning, and just really great to be together and to debrief what we saw, what we learned, share meals together. And I just feel like it's a really important piece of making a functioning governance team. And so thank you everyone for attending. And that was really all I have. Thanks.
Excellent. Yeah, to piggyback a little bit on what Rachel was saying about CSB, that was definitely the highlight of my last month, and sharing that time with you, and a few things seen there. Some really inspiring, great things that are on the horizon for public education and for our students, and really trying to understand and tackle how we embrace and manage AI as it comes in, and what's in the future for these students, and a lot of really great inspiring things. And then also being able to go to breakout sessions and seminars on the things that are also pulling communities apart, and hearing multiple perspective on what's happening, what's going on, and seeing both of those. And then also seeing that it's not just happening in our boardroom, in our community. These are things that are happening all across California, all across the United States, and there's a variety of different opinions on them, and really being able to listen about those and think through those things, but spending a great time and being very inspired mainly on what is the potential future for public education, and to see that many people, thousands of people there having a very similar shared experience to what we're all doing and what we're trying to achieve together. Had the opportunity to do office hours this week, and my next one's going to be on January 8th. And I would encourage everybody, we are all doing office hours. It's a great time. I do a 30-minute private session, so it can just be you, it can be you and your spouse, it can be anything, but you have the opportunity for 30 minutes to ask away any questions that you want, and I try to give the best answers or guidance that I can. But I really enjoy those, and I enjoy those interactions. And just to wrap it up, I just thank you all, everybody here, everybody watching, everybody working at the district office and the schools. I want you all to have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Holidays. And I just hope that this season is one of peace and joy and reflection as we go into the next year.
Just adding just a little bit, something different for the AEC, the CSBA conference that we all also enjoyed time with you all. We also wanted to, I learned a lot, just like Jesse was saying, a lot of different things, and saw a lot of different programs, right, from different districts all over California. But I have to say that we're also sharing, and I was really proud because we have a couple of district directors who presented at CSBA and shared how we use data to make better decisions and more effective resource use to support our students. So want to shout out, it's our district directors, Dr. Holmwin and Kit Bragg, right? Geez, Shelley, you have been all over the place.
I have been all over the place.
Because we
sometimes in one day.
Yeah, we attended, Shelley and I attended a couple of chamber events for the San Ramon Valley or San Ramon Chamber WOW Awards dinner to celebrate actually our principal Demetrius Ball, because he was presented with an award, as well as Shelby Ye, a student at Doherty Valley High School. So we went and kind of helped them celebrate. And then yesterday, was it only yesterday? Yes,
yeah, it was yesterday.
Danville Chamber Awards lunch, which the Danville Chamber and Three Valleys, this group, nonprofit philanthropy group, actually presented grants to 3 organizations, mental health related, that youth mental health related, that actually our school district works with. And that was Discovery Counseling Center. They got some funding. It was Tina Steam. They got some funding for their seminars or presentations. And then April Rovero's National Coalition Against Prescription Drug Abuse. So we attended that, and also again help prop them their purpose up. We went to Student Senate meeting along with Anya, and really had really good discussion with the kids about what we do, what board members do, as well as listening to them and their concerns and issues that they were that's important to them, which was about bathrooms and bathrooms and lunches, student lunches. Yes. And then attended the beautiful concert, right? The holiday concert, I know, at the Stakes Church,
right.
which is right next door. Always really enjoy those because they're beautiful, and all 4 of our student choirs at the high school choirs, that's what I want to say, high school choirs performed, and they were just absolutely wonderful. Lastly, at PTA had the Council Reflection Showcase, and we have 26 students who are moving on to 32nd District, that means countywide. So they get to go to the next round of judging. And 2 of those are special artists, which is a special education student. So really, but we were able to celebrate all the students who submitted artwork and to the council level. So just wanted to shout out to them. That's me.
So her and I are at some of the same things. So you heard all about those, so I won't go over those again. But I also did, right after the chamber event, I ran out of there early to make a site visit with Dr. Malloy to John Baldwin, which was absolutely delightful because my son went to Baldwin and I love that community, and I spent a lot of my time there when my son was there. And it's just the most cohesive, wonderful group of educators, and the principal is outstanding, and they all love him, and it's very apparent. And we got to have a discussion with some of the students who were so articulate and mature beyond their years and gave us some actually really good ideas, as we always get. There's always those nuggets you get when you go and you talk to the kids. So I totally enjoyed that. I also did a presentation at Cal High PTSA about the ambassador program and of course the parcel tax. And emotional well-being committee met, and there's students in that also, and they have a lot of really great input to give, and they're also excited about our new student peer counseling program that I've been trying to champion for a while, and it's getting legs now, and it's going to be starting at Monte Vista. A shout out to Susanna for running the reflection showcase. Was like a 3-ring circus, and she did it all gracefully. And so it was really a really nice event and a great venue, and we were all there to support. And
yes, thank you and Rachel for like breaking down and cleaning up.
Well, it was a really great event. We have a lot of really talented young artists. So I think that's enough for me.
My list is very short. I was out of the country for the last week and a half, so did not do very much. But I did go to CSBA, and I really appreciated, as Rachel said, the opportunity for us to be together and the opportunity for us to have some professional development, because I think that's extremely valuable as we are entrusted with the public education in our community. So it was a great experience as usual. And I want to thank everyone for their patience with me this evening. This has been daunting for me, and I really appreciate all the support I had in preparing for this evening and in this evening. And then I want to say good luck to all of our students who are starting their finals in the next week, and to all of our staff as well, finishing off the semester. And then I hope that everyone has a relaxing and restorative break as we start off the year 2024. So with that,